Chapter 256A Strange Attitude, Part 2. With the head of the manor away, it was hard to prevent this sort of theft from happening again. Jiyu Wenqing decided to have Qiju the manor's servants. Those, like those chefs, who were brought in later and seemed problematic, were all let go to prevent future problems. When he had to go out to handle daily matters, he had the servants seek out Yu Fu whenever there were any problems. All of the manor's affairs would be left to her. It had to be said that the future sister-in-law had much more talent in the area of managing the manor's affairs than he did. Young miss, these invitations arrived at the manor today. Fourth young sir was too busy and told this servant to deliver it to you. Qiju waved his hand with a smile, and the servant behind him carefully placed a stack of invitations on the table. Yu Jiyu glanced at him, feeling that the manor's servants have had a strange attitude towards her in the past few days. Ever since she dealt with those chefs, everyone looked at her with more respect and less uncertainty. This many invitations? She retracted her gaze and casually flipped through the invitations. The majority were from the children of high-ranking court officials. It was likely that they wanted to use this opportunity while the head of the manor was away to improve relations with the younger generation. This was no good. Who knew which side their fathers took in court? Were they members of the eldest prince's faction, or were they members of the second prince's faction? Even if they were undecided and members of Emperor Ning's faction, she did not want to receive them. Fourth brother was already busy enough. How could he have the time to deal with these people? She could not just leave Jiyu Xiong and Jiyu Yi to receive them, right? She placed those invitations to the side and picked out a few from some familiar names. These seemed to be from the Madam of Commander Jin and the Madam of Commander Yang. With their husbands and sons leaving with the head general to fight in the battle, there will surely be plenty of inconveniences for them to deal with on their own. Steward Qi, send some reliable people to check up on them. That will save them the need to come to our manor and ask the younger generation for help. How could they possibly bring themselves to lose face like that? Qiju was stunned. How did young miss know that they had troubles and needed to come and ask for help? Yu Fu placed those two to the side on their own. Based on Eastern Ling's customs, the madams have their own social circles. The people whom they interact with will surely also be the madams of other officials. But our manor doesn't have any madam, so they would never visit Marquis Gu's manor aside from when there is a banquet. Now that this has come, it can't possibly be to invite me for a chat, right? Qiju had a sudden realization, so it was like that. It's no wonder I found these two invitations unfamiliar. I always felt it was strange but could not figure out why it felt strange. I will immediately send people to check up on the two manors. Ah, wait a moment. Yu Fu suddenly saw an invitation in the pile with a unique pattern. Picking it up to take a look, it had Kuan Yuyang written on it. She let out a laugh. A dignified princess directly wrote her given name on the invitation. Yu Fu had lived in Eastern Ling for a long time, so she found it quite fresh to see the bold mannerisms of a girl from Western Kuan. Western Kuan's princess is a female guest. I will see her. These are frequent visitors to Marquis Gu's manor and cannot be declined so easily, so have fourth brother personally visit them. Just decline the rest, saying that things are messy here at the manor without the head of the manor present, so it's inconvenient to receive guests. Messy. Qiju looked around. Under Jiyu Wenqing and Yu Fu's management, the manor was the same as it was before. Where was there any mess? Yu Fu looked at him with a smile and gave him a look. The latter immediately understood and had the servant behind him leave with the invitations. When Kuan Yuyang brought up Ku Wushong, Yu Fu's expression changed. It seemed as though she did not like hearing his name. If anyone else had seen this expression, they would definitely stop bringing up that name, but Kuan Yuyang was different. Yu Fu, do you not really like my imperial seventh brother? Is he not your junior disciple? When he was last in Eastern Ling, he did some bad things, and he used me to do some things that made me feel very uncomfortable. Yu Fu provided a simple explanation. Seeing Kuan Yuyang's expression darken, she was worried that she misunderstood, but don't worry. He is him, and you are you. I like your personality and won't take my frustration out on you just because you two are siblings. Kuan Yuyang lifted her head and said, Of course, I know that. Seventh brother does go way too far on some things, but he treats me quite well. My father emperor has too many children, and he himself might not remember all of my children. It might be because we were both of low birth that seventh brother took particularly good care of me. When he left Western Kuan to go to Immortals Valley, I cried for a long time. It turned out that the two of them were connected in that way. Yu Fu said, but I heard that since he made the great contribution of toppling Eastern Ling's prime minister, he gained quite a bit of influence. Since he treats you well, why did he not stop Emperor Kuan from sending you for a political marriage? With war breaking out on the border, everyone now knew that Kuan Yuyang was a sacrifice sent by Emperor Kuan. Her smile carried an unspoken secret. I came of my own volition. Seventh brother could not stop it. Rather than be bullied for the rest of my life in Western Kuan, it would be better to come to Eastern Ling to seek out a better life. Thank the heavens and the earth that my bet paid off. Your ruler truly is a forgiving person. Chapter 257 The Fourth Teacup, Part 3, Kuan Yuyang pulled out a gilded invitation from her pocket. My marriage to young Sir Ning has already been decided, and Emperor Ning did not trouble me. The wedding banquet will take place in 1 month. You absolutely must come. It turned out that she had come to deliver an invitation. All right, I will go. Your marriage and Princess Danyang's marriage will take place on the same day, but they should be in 2 different places, right? Yu Fu suddenly remembered that Kuan Yuyang's and Princess Danyang's weddings would be on the same day. If she went to Kuan Yuyang's, that would provide a justification for her not attending Princess Danyang's wedding. That was indeed quite good. Kuan Yuyang shook her head. Young Sir Ning is a member of the imperial family. His Majesty said that with there being 2 weddings happening at the same time, which one should the members of the imperial family attend? As a result, both of them will be held inside the imperial palace. Yu Fu was a little disappointed. She did not want to see Yin Shuo and Princess Danyang's wedding. Marriage was a joyous matter, but it was being used to bind 2 people who disliked each other. It was guaranteed to be a tragedy. Fortunately, there were Kuan Yuyang and young Sir Ning. During the banquet at Chunhee Garden, he had offended Princess Danyang for her sake. It was clear that he truly wished to protect her. Kuan Yuyang frowned. In truth, I don't want the 2 weddings to be held at the same time. Princess Danyang is the princess born of Eastern Ling's empress, so the wedding is sure to be grand. As for me, mine will look quite bad. Others would talk about her and talk about how she was benefiting from being associated with Princess Danyang. There would be people who would talk about how she was a chess piece sent out by Western Kuan or that she was a spy. Yu Fu smiled. You? Look bad. The one who looks bad is clearly Princess Danyang. Heh. Why? Yu Fu said, did you forget about what happened at Chunhee Garden? Princess Danyang humiliated her future husband to such a degree, but Prime Minister Yin did not act in the way that she predicted and did not request for the marriage to be cancelled. At that time, there were so many children from aristocratic families who saw, but at the wedding, she still needs to put on a smile and pretend to get along with Prime Minister Yin. Tell me, would she not look bad? Kuan Yuyang cheerfully said, that's right. Why did I not think of this? As for young Sir Ning, he doesn't look down on my identity at all. During the past few days, he has sent people to deliver gifts to me at the post house. Even for someone as unrestrained as her, she too became embarrassed at a time like this, and Yu Fu found it quite fun to watch. That's why there's no need for you to worry. Would it not be better to think about what accessories you should wear at that time? Yin Shuo, that gutless bastard, is such a complete failure. I insulted him to such a degree in front of so many people, yet he still didn't go to Father Emperor to ask for the engagement to be cancelled. For the sake of the influence that comes from being my husband, he's really willing to forsake all face. In the Western Palace, Princess Danyang had smashed 3 teacups, hit 5 palace maids, and insulted Yin Shuo countless times. She had said all of the nastiest things that she could, but Yin Shuo did not have the slightest reaction. Not only did he not go to ask Emperor Ning to cancel the engagement, but she had also heard that he was preparing at his manor for the wedding. In the past, she had not realized that he was such a shameless person. The second prince was growing annoyed from listening to her. What's the point of smashing things here? Yin Shuo was never a normal person, so I will advise you to stop. If he ever regains influence and remembers how you humiliated him, I fear that you will not have a good time. He had tacitly agreed to Princess Danyang's plan to humiliate Yin Shuo in order to achieve the goal of having the engagement cancelled, but now he had changed his stance. A young man full of vigor, capable of remaining stoic after being humiliated to such a degree by his future wife, was someone who could eventually make it big. It was possible that he could still have a great turn of luck. There was no need to completely tear him down. Emperor Ning rolled his eyes. It's because we have made no progress even after looking them over tens of times that we are feeling anxious. You old thing, you just came to make fun of us, haven't you? Ah, how could this servant dare? Eunuch Jiao knew that Emperor Ning was tired and deliberately bantered with him. This old servant was just worried about your Majesty's eyes and that the officials might laugh that they've become sunken in. Lord Ji has come, so how about your Majesty chats with him a little? Ji Daogong had come. Emperor Ning put the list down and heavily leaned back in his chair. Quickly invite him in. It's getting hotter and hotter, so don't just leave him standing outside. Ji Daogong walked in and happened to hear Emperor Ning's words, saying with a smile, "Many thanks for your Majesty's concern." With the eaves of the roof, this old servant would not suffer from the sun. He spoke while walking over, and his eyes landed on the pile of ice in the room. With the days getting hotter, it's also normal for your Majesty to get tired from looking over reports. But it's also best to avoid using the ice piles too much. Your Majesty is no longer young. Be careful not to catch a cold. Emperor Ning waved his hand, and the eunuchs in the room moved the pile of ice to a corner away from Ji Daogong's spot. Old Ji, don't worry. Our health is perfectly fine. It's just that the matter of the cabinet is causing a headache. That's why we had them bring in the ice to get rid of the heat. Ji Daogong let out a sigh. After Lord Marquis Jiyu left, Your Majesty doesn't even have someone to talk to and has no choice but to shut yourself in the imperial study. This old servant does not feel comfortable with watching this. Chapter 258 Completely Alone, Part 4. Emperor Ning heaved a sigh and stood up from behind his desk. He looked out through the window, and the bright sunlight shone on the ground with the sound of cicadas chirping in the distance. Is it almost time for the Dragon Boat Festival? Your Majesty, today is the day of the Dragon Boat Festival. Did you not eat the zongzi? It was already the Dragon Boat Festival. Carefully calculating the days, it had already been over a month since Jiyu Huijiang had left for the border. Emperor Ning glanced at Eunuch Jiao, and the latter said with difficulty, "This old servant asked Your Majesty this morning, and Your Majesty said that you wanted to eat the usual, thus this old servant did not bring them out." Emperor Ning thought back for a moment. This did indeed seem to have happened. How can we not eat zongzi for the Dragon Boat Festival? We did not hear you clearly. You should have reminded us about it. Ji Daogong smiled and said, "Your Majesty has been busy with the matter of appointing members to the cabinet." With a constantly troubled expression, how could Eunuch Jiao dare to trouble Your Majesty? Eunuch Jiao gave him a look of gratitude. "Many thanks for speaking objectively for this old servant, Lord Ji." "Hey, look at him." Emperor Ning pointed at him. "You've even formed a group to go against us. Are you saying that we are not objective? Has Princess Danyang also not come to visit? During previous Dragon Boat festivals, she would always come and deliver a personally embroidered pouch. The pouches given during the Dragon Boat Festival would be filled with wormwood and sagebrush leaves. There would also be some fragrances meant to ward off poisons and ill omens. In the past, the members of the imperial harem and the princesses would vie for the chance to give him a pouch. However, he did not see a single one this year. He did not wish to see imperial consort Xian and others like her, having Eunuch Jiao stop them outside, but he did not tell Eunuch Jiao to stop Princess Danyang. Ji Daogong said, "Your Majesty, do not blame Princess Danyang. She is currently in the middle of preparing for the wedding. She barely even has enough time to embroider her wedding dress, so how could she have the time to embroider a pouch for Your Majesty?" There was nobody as objective in court as Ji Daogong. When Emperor Ning heard what he had to say, his heart filled with fatherly love. When a princess of the imperial family got married, there was no need for her to embroider her own wedding dress. Everything from clothing to accessories would be provided by the Board of Internal Affairs and the Board of Rights. He had an idea of what Princess Danyang was busy with. We have put ourselves into a position to be completely alone. Who knows what my two eldest sons are thinking, and our most beloved daughter is no longer close with us, blaming us for engaging her to the wrong person. We have both sons and daughters, as well as plenty of concubines in the inner palace, but we are no better than lonely old men. Princess Danyang hosted a banquet at Chunhee Garden, and everyone knew that she used that opportunity to humiliate Yin Shuo. Naturally, Emperor Ning also knew about it. He just pretended not to know unless Yin Shuo truly ran over to seek him out to cancel the engagement. Fortunately, Yin Shuo was a loyal official and did not do as Princess Danyang had hoped. He did not do something that would not benefit him or anyone else. By establishing a cabinet, Your Majesty is openly reducing Prime Minister Yin's power. By keeping the original plan of engaging Princess Danyang to Prime Minister Yin, it's to try and console Prime Minister Yin, right? These were the words used by Emperor Taizong to praise the virtuous official Wei Zheng, and Ji Daogong cupped his hands and said, Your Majesty's praise is too much. In truth, Your Majesty's mirror is Lord Marquis Ji Yu. At most, this old official is just using my seniority to admonish the officials on Your Majesty's behalf. This is your best attribute. You do not get jealous. You are not biased. You are completely fair. If the members of court were more like you and Huijiang, we would not be so lonely. Ji Daogong raised his head and momentarily froze. He knew that Emperor Ning was talking about the eldest prince and the second prince. There were many members of court who were part of the two princes' factions. Emperor Ning was suspicious of the two and naturally was reluctant to place his trust in the officials who were close with them. But relying on him alone, how long would it take to finish filling out the cabinet? He lowered his head once more. His snow-white beard was like a willow, perfectly still. Actually, we want to establish a cabinet, but it's not just because of Yin Shuo. We have been thinking of this for quite some time. By spreading out the Prime Minister's power, even if he becomes part of any faction, it will not directly threaten our court. Chapter 259 How to Make Conversation, Part 5, Slow down, slow down. Don't hang the celebratory curtain crooked. Early in the morning, Yin Jiao awoke with a shock, hearing the loud voices come from her yard. Peia entered the room with a copper basin. As the bead curtain made a loud sound, young miss woke up. Yuan. She listlessly responded, What's the ruckus outside? There's so much noise outside. It's the steward leading the servants in decorating the manor. Our courtyard's garden is already decorated with red curtains. Princess Danyang has a noble status, and the eldest young sir said that we must be sure to decorate everything properly. Princess Danyang humiliated him in front of everyone, but not only did he not seek His Majesty to have the engagement cancelled, he actually had the manor decorated so exquisitely. Since when has our manor's eldest young sir ever had such a good temperament? Peia thought for a bit and suddenly shuddered, recalling the girl who had been beaten silly and was carried out on that rainy day. Yin Jiao seemed to understand what she was thinking, as she also became stiff. After a long pause, she received the handkerchief that Peia was holding and haphazardly wiped her face. Forget it. The manor is a mess, and I don't want to stay here. Let's go out. Go out. Where? Yin Jiao very rarely went out, and she did not have many friends. When she went out in the past, it was always with Jiu Juji. Now that Jiu Juji was leading soldiers in battle at the border, where could she go? Yin Jiao deftly changed her clothes. I heard that when the second young sir left, he left Miss Yarrow Yu in the care of Yushan Building's shopkeeper, Yu Guan. I was thinking of going to see Miss Yarrow Yu, so going to Yushan Building would be quite nice. Then let's go to Yushan Building. Peia grimaced. In her eyes, Yarrow Yu was just a seductress who was stealing her young Miss Man. Moreover, she was a prostitute. She did not hope for her young miss to interact with her too much. Yin Jiao slightly raised an eyebrow. She already had a bit of insight on this matter. Young miss, do you want to go out? Just after exiting her courtyard, a granny came over to greet her. Yin Jiao looked closely and noticed that it was Yin Shuo's personal granny. Peya said, "Oh, young miss I wanted to walk around the manor a little and see what their newlywed courtyard looks like." Yin Jiaro interrupted Peya, and the latter glanced at her before nodding to the granny. "That's right. Young miss wanted to walk around a little." The granny said, "That's good. Young sir invited young miss to the outer study. Please come along." The outer study. It was no wonder the granny was so courteous to her today. If Yin Shuo was inviting her to the outer study, he definitely had orders for her, right? "Very well, I will go immediately." When she arrived at the outer study, Yin Shuo was seated behind his usual desk. That seat previously belonged to Yin Yang. She casually sat down next to the desk and saw that Yin Shuo was holding a booklet. It had a long list of names written on it. Yin Shuo did not even look up. "This is a list of officials that I currently believe are most likely to be selected for the cabinet." This time, His Majesty did not ask for anyone's opinion when selecting members of the cabinet. Whether it was me, the eldest prince, the second prince, or even the members of the inner palace, he deliberately avoided all of us. He deliberately avoided you, yet eldest brother was still able to get this list of names. You truly are exceptionally crafty. Her words carried a sarcastic tone, and it was not as though Yin Shuo could not hear it. "Jiao, why do I feel as though you have become dyed in Jiu Joga's carefree attitude from spending so much time with him? For a man, having this sort of attitude is tolerable, but it's not a great thing for a woman to have." Yin Jiao furrowed her brow even more upon hearing this description. When Yin Yang told her to get close to Jiu Juji, was it not just because he found him to be the most unrestrained of the young sirs in Marquis Gu's manor? However, reality proved that Jiu Juji was not at all that sort of person. Using beauties against him was pointless. He never overstepped his bounds when it came to her, nor would he reveal any of Marquis Gu's manor's secrets to outsiders. He was a man with a very clear plan. As for this Chen Chuxiu, whether he was truly a licentious son of a wealthy family or not, she did not know. "Eldest brother wants me to find out whether or not His Majesty intends to have Lord Chen join the cabinet." Yin Shuo nodded. "If you can learn some more, for example, who will most likely join the cabinet with him, that would be even better." Yin Jiao was a bit reluctant, but the Prime Minister's manor and the Chen manor did not really have any interactions before this. "How should I get close to young Sir Chen? It would be better to wait for eldest brother's wedding with Princess Danyang. At that time, Imperial Censor Chen will definitely bring his darling son with him." When Princess Danyang was brought up, Yin Shuo's expression instantly turned ugly. "No, I can't wait that long. Chen Chuxiu will be riding a leisure boat this afternoon at West Lake. You go too. At that time, find an excuse to start a conversation." He looked at Yin Jiao sideways. "You don't need me to teach you how to talk to men, right?" Chapter 260 Seductress, Part 1. In the afternoon, the sun's rays shone down from the west and illuminated everything around Lei Feng Pagoda with a halo of light hovering in the sky. The summer breeze was cool, causing ripples in the river and lifting the willow tree's branches. The leaves on the lake bunched together, and the flowers swayed. A small boat drifted among the flowers on the lake, as a young man's hearty voice rang out, "As expected of West Lake in the middle of the 6th month, the scenery is truly different than during the rest of the year. The lotus leaves on the horizon creates an endless sea of green, and under the setting sun, a gorgeous scarlet." A girl's voice came from inside the boat's cabin. "Young Sir Chen, it's currently the 5th month. The 5th month? What poems were there about the 5th month? Farmers have very little free time, and the 5th month was especially busy. No, this poem was completely uninteresting and was not fit for being recited right now." Chen Chuxiu searched through his mind but could not think of a suitable poem to salvage the situation. Turning his head, he smiled awkwardly. "Miss Yaoyu, you know that I'm not much of a scholar, so please don't trouble me." After saying this, he clambered into the cabin and headed toward the back. He casually leaned back and kicked his legs up. Yaoyu held a peeper in her lap and faintly smiled. "What song would young Sir Chen like to listen to?" "I don't want to listen to a song." "Miss Yaoyu." Chen Chuxiu lifted his head and saw Yaoyu holding her peeper. It looked as if they had grown up together, Thus he placed her peeper to the side. Don't be so busy. Be like me and lay down. Breathe in the fresh air from the lake. Nobody will come during the afternoon. This place is both quiet and beautiful. It's most suited for someone who has just recovered from illness. Yarrow Yu was stunned. After a long pause, she finally said, Many thanks, young Sir Chen, for your kind intentions, but I cannot accept undeserved payment. Yarrow Yu will bid you farewell. Ah, that's no good. Chen Chuxiu sprang up from the deck of the boat. I just want to enjoy the scenery of the lake, smell the fragrance of the flowers, and chat with you. Is that no good? You just recovered from a serious illness, and I don't want you to tire yourself with playing the peeper. I know that you have feelings for the second young sir of the Jiyu family, and I know that you only sell your craft and not your body. That's why I specifically made an appointment with you to come out this afternoon. Though there are no other people here, are you still afraid that I would do something to you in broad daylight? With him speaking so openly, Yarrow Yu became a little embarrassed. But Yarrow Yu has accepted young sir's money and cannot be too carefree. How about this? Young sir lays down and enjoys the scenery. While enjoying the scenery, you can listen to my music. If I get tired from playing, I will rest. Is this fine? All right then. Chen Chuxiu lay back down, and the sound of Yarrow Yu's peeper entered his ears. She had closed her doors and turned away clients for a long time. After Jiyu Juji left, she recovered from her illness, yet she still refused to go out and entertain clients. With nobody to protect her, she was afraid that she would run into problems. But Chen Chuxiu was different. This youth was only 18 years of age, and rumors had spread that he was a licentious son of a wealthy family. Yarrow Yu had entertained him a few times and knew that he was very proper, thus she was willing to come out to see him. After playing one song, Yarrow Yu felt a little tired. Leaning against the cabin, she chatted with Chen Chuxiu about poetry, music, and miscellaneous things. From time to time, she would be brought to laughter by Chen Chuxiu's jokes, and the latter felt quite satisfied. Eventually, he fell asleep. Yarrow Yu did not disturb him. Seeing the sunshine on his face, she covered his eyes with a silk handkerchief to keep him from being woken up by the light. Something as rare and pleasant as this moment of idleness should not be disrupted by anyone. This was true for her and also true for Chen Chuxiu. He self-mockingly thought to himself that if Jiyu Juji had not left, how could he possibly have any chance of inviting Yarrow Yu out? Chapter 261 Venting for Her, Part 2. It turned out that he was not sleeping and was just pretending. Shrieks came from the girls on the boat next to them, as Paya stepped out and shouted, "Who are you? You actually dared to kick our boat. Do you know?" She looked at Chen Chuxiu's face. The longer she looked, the more she felt that something was off, and she could not continue saying what she wanted to say. The young man before her looked very familiar. He looked more and more like the picture that the eldest young sir had given the young miss. Young Sir Chen. Yarrow Yu came out of the cabin, wanting to stop Chen Chuxiu. On the other side, Yin Jiao heard her voice and also came out. Young Sir Chen? It was quite a coincidence that they would run into a young Sir Chen, but was it the Chen Chuxiu that they were looking for? Looking behind him, they saw Yarrow Yu. Master and servant were both stunned. Yarrow Yu must have heard their earlier conversation. Chen Chuxiu folded his arms over his chest and rudely sized up Yin Jiao. Which family's young miss are you? Looking at you, you should be from a prominent family, so how can you say such rude things? Yarrow Yu awkwardly stepped forward to stop him. Young Sir Chen, it's not like that. Young Miss Yin and I know each other. There is a misunderstanding here. Please do not make a fuss over it. Know each other? Chen Chuxiu thought back. The maidservant earlier had mentioned Jiyu Juji and immediately understood. So it was another one of second young Sir Gu's admirers, young Miss Yin? There are very few in court with the surname Yin. Would the young miss happen to be Prime Minister Yin's younger sister? At this point, Yin Jiao had regained her wits and had an understanding of the identity of the young man before her. Greetings, young Sir Chen. Chen Chuxiu sneered and said with disdain, Young miss was asked by Prime Minister Yin to come and find me, but may I ask what for? He already knew why. Aside from the battle at the border, The biggest movement in court was the establishing of the cabinet. His father, Imperial Censor Chen, was a top candidate for the cabinet. Yin Shuo had his younger sister come to get close to him, and the purpose was self-evident. Yin Jiaro's expression became awkward. She had indeed come to get closer to Chen Chuxiu, but this was discovered by the other side before she even had a chance to act. It was all her fault for being too careless, thinking that nobody was on the lake. The boat next to theirs had been stopped in place for a long time with no movement, thus it had to be an empty boat. Who knew that the person that she and Peia were talking about was inside that boat, and it was both people. Yin Jiaro was unable to speak, but Yarrow Yu was very adept at observing people's expressions. She nodded and said, "Since young Miss Yin has come to see young Sir Chen with a matter, Yarrow Yu will bid farewell first. Please take your time. How do you plan on leaving? Do you have a boat to get back?" Chen Chuxiu was verbally plaintive, but the look in his eyes was gentle. Just as Yin Jiaro was thinking about leaving, she heard him say, "How about young Miss Yin waits for me for a while? I will have the helmsman send Miss Yarrow Yu back first, then come back to find you. How does that sound?" Yin Jiaro was caught off guard. Even after such a mess, Chen Chuxiu was still willing to talk to her. It seemed that he only knew that she had been sent by Yin Shuo to seek him out but did not know her true mission. She needed to think carefully about how to reply properly. "Very well, young Sir Chen, you go ahead." "Miss Yarrow Yu, just now, it was Peia who spoke rudely. I hope that you will be magnanimous and forgive her." He said that he wanted to have the Yin family's siblings suffer a little, but what would this suffering be? Yin Jiaro was Jiyu Joga's friend, and Yarrow Yu was a little worried, but young Miss Yin is still a girl. Even if she has any schemes, they were drawn up by her elder brother. How are they related to her? Getting close to him was her elder brother's plot, but insulting Yarrow Yu and calling her a seductress behind her back was not a false accusation, right? Chen Chuxiu did not say it out loud. He knew that Yarrow Yu was kind-hearted, thus said, "Don't worry. I have a sense of measure." Yarrow Yu pursed her lips. She did not feel that Chen Chuxiu had a sense of measure, but this was a matter pertaining to court affairs. She just knew that based on her own status, she should not concern herself with it. The shore drew closer and closer. After the helmsman lifted the bamboo oar and placed it on the dock, the boat came to a stop. Yarrow Yu stood up and swayed with the rocking of the boat. Chen Chuxiu immediately stood up and reached out to support her. "Don't be so reserved. Go back and rest well." He had deliberately avoided bodily contact. Even when supporting her, he simply held her at arm's length, paying close attention to his distance. Yarrow Yu gratefully looked at him, "Then Yarrow Yu will be going first." Chapter 262 Image completely ruined, Part 3, Young Miss Yin, I've made you wait a long time. Chen Chuxiu very quickly returned to the center of the lake where they first met, and Yin Jiao's boat was still waiting there. She was quite happy to see him return. He sneered internally. Lifting his head, he looked over at Peia, who was at Yin Jiao's side. "Young Miss Yin, I find that maidservant to be displeasing. Young Miss Yin, I invite you to come and speak in the cabin of my boat." After saying this, he climbed into the cabin of his boat and left her with no room to negotiate. Peia grabbed her. "Young miss, bachelors and unmarried girls should not spend time together. What would we do if he does something improper to young miss?" Yin Jiao unhappily pushed her hand away. "Is this not your fault? I already told you that you are not allowed to talk about Miss Yarrow Yu that way. If not for you saying what you did, why would young Sir Chen not want to see you? You stay here and wait for me to return." She crossed over onto Chen Chuxiu's boat, and the helmsman gently pushed the two boats apart. Peia pouted and remained in place. Thinking about how Yin Jiaro would not be returning for some time, she decided to just go back inside the cabin. "Young Miss Yin, come and sit." The furnishings inside the cabins were very casual, and Chen Chuxiu himself was laying casually on the deck of the cabin. To his side were a couple of teacups. One was in front of an empty seat, and it was immediately clear that it was where Yarrow Yu had been sitting. Yin Jiaro paused for a moment, then sat down in that seat and inconspicuously pushed the cup of tea away. Chen Chuxiu fiddled with a handkerchief and was in a good mood but did not look at Yin Jiao. I have grown accustomed to being laid back. If young Miss Yin wishes to drink tea, pour it yourself. Yin Jiao smiled politely while looking around but did not see any additional cups. Did he want her to use the cup that Yarrow Yu had just used? Considering their romantic rivalry, Yin Jiao did not touch the teacup. It's fine. I'm not thirsty. Young Sir Chen really has an aesthetic sense. When others go sailing on the lake, they do so at night. As a result, there are countless people on the lake that creates a chaotic scene. Young Sir Chen choosing to come in the evening when the lake is quiet allows for the scenery to be properly enjoyed. She truly was a well-read daughter from a noble family. In just a few words, she showed her class and also cleverly flattered Chen Chuxiu. The young man laying on the deck suddenly sat up straight. He carefully placed the handkerchief into his lapel. Didn't young Miss Yin say that Prime Minister Yin had a matter that he wanted you to come and see me for? It would be better to say it directly. That will keep us from having to deal with more people showing up as it gets later into the night. Yin Jiao did not think that he would be so direct and was momentarily stunned, not knowing how to respond. Chen Chuxiu laughed. Forget it. I already know without you needing to respond. Since young Miss Yin wants something from me, you should know that you need to provide some sort of payment, right? He leaned closer to Yin Jiao and provocatively lifted Yin Jiao's chin. Yin Jiao was caught off guard. Pay, what? On the other side, Yarrow Yu walked along the bank of the lake and suddenly stopped. Chen Chuxiu did not have a wicked heart, but his actions were always outside of what others expected. If he did something improper to Yin Jiao, how could that be good? As she turned around, the sky was starting to darken. A group of boats were parked on the shore nearby, waiting to do business once it got darker. She randomly waved to a helmsman. Boatman, I want to go to the middle of the lake, just over there. Can you bring me there? She pointed off into the distance. In the middle of the lake, there were no other boats aside from those belonging to Chen Chuxiu and Yin Jiao. Thus the boatman immediately saw them. All right, girlie. Climb on. I am the Prime Minister's younger sister. What do you intend to do? Do you think I'm stupid? Even if I disrespect you here, the Prime Minister can do nothing about it. Who knows, he might even be happy to have one favor with my powerful Chen family. If you fell into the water and died, I would have a lot of trouble to deal with. It would be better to take you as a concubine after this. My Chen family can still afford that much. He emphasized the word concubine, and Yin Jiao found the humiliation unbearable. I, the daughter of the dignified Prime Minister's manor, am to be your concubine? Don't even think about it. Even if I die, I will not allow you to make it a reality. Oh! If rice is cooked, it cannot be turned back. We'll see if it can happen or not. With a tearing sound, he ripped Yin Jiao's top off and forcefully pushed her to the deck. Young Sir Chen, stop. Yarrow Yu barged into the cabin. Seeing what was unfolding, her eyes grew wide. Chen Chuxiu's eyes grew even wider. Oh no, the image that he had maintained in front of Yarrow Yu had been ruined. Smack. While he was distracted, Yin Jiao sat up and fiercely slapped him across the face. Chapter 263 When Will That Day Come? Part 4, Young Miss, what happened to you? Yin Jiao arrived back at the Prime Minister's manor, and Peia helped her inside. The partially dried blood trail on her forehead was especially frightening. When the gatekeeper saw this, he was given a fright. This old servant will immediately send for an imperial physician. For a girl's face to be wounded was no small matter. Yin Jiao had not yet gotten married, so it would be bad if this injury resulted in a scar. No need. Yin Jiao's voice was cold. I want to go and sleep. Nobody is to disturb me. Nobody was to disturb her. The servants pondered what she meant. The manor only had 2 masters remaining. When she said that nobody was to disturb her, was that not just saying that the eldest young sir should not disturb her? On the surface, the servants complied, but once Yin Jiao left, they immediately went to the study to report to Yin Shaw. In the end, the servants understood very clearly who made the final decisions in the manor. Yin Jiaro fell asleep in her clothes and was awoken by a sharp pain in her forehead after an unknown span of time. An unfamiliar man's face loomed large in front of her. She subconsciously slapped him away. Impudence. Mysteriously, the man who had been slapped stood up and looked at Yin Shuo in confusion. The latter walked over to the side of the bed. Jiao, this is the doctor who has come to treat you. Don't move and let him treat the injury to your forehead. It would not be good if it left a scar. A doctor. It turned out that he was a doctor. Yin Jiao's expression turned as cold as ice. If it scars, let it scar. With a scar, eldest brother won't have me be a honey trap. Yin Shuo's expression immediately turned ugly. He then turned and saw the doctor look away and pretend not to hear anything. It was fortunate that he had not allowed for an imperial physician to be called and had instead gotten a normal doctor. If any mention of a honey trap made it into the court, he would have a big problem on his hands. Doctor, how is the wound to her head? The doctor regained his wits, replying to Lord Prime Minister, the young Miss wound is from bumping against a wooden table. As long as the ointment is applied properly, it will be fine. This lowly one will also prescribe a calming medicine, and she will recover in a few days. Calming? The doctor said, that's right. The young miss has suffered from a shocking situation, and that does nothing to help her recover. Once her mental situation is stable, her external injuries will recover faster. In the end, something had happened to her. She had been wounded and suffered a mental shock. Yin Shuo furrowed his brow and coldly said, we've troubled doctor. The maidservant who takes care of the young miss got hurt from bumping into a door. That's why we brought doctor in to treat her. The payment will not be much, but I hope that doctor will accept. An old servant stepped forward and gave the doctor a large silver ingot. The doctor's eyes immediately lit up. Yes, 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 this lowly one came in to treat a maidservant. As for anything else, I do not know anything. Lord Prime Minister, please do not worry. After he left, Yin Shuo dismissed all of the maidservants in the room. What exactly happened today? I told you to get close to Chen Chuxiu to get information, so how did you end up like this? Yin Jiaro stared at him. He wanted to force himself on me, and when I tried to escape, he caught me. At that time, I hit my head on a table. Yin Shuo's expression changed but quickly returned to normal. In the end, there was a look of hope. Smack. Yin Shuo calmly slapped her. Do you know what you're saying? It was deathly quiet. Yin Jiaro did not speak, as the blood from the wound on her forehead dripped onto the brocade blanket, wetting an intricate embroidery of a cherry flower. In the end, they were still siblings, and Yin Shuo found it a little unbearable. I have already told you about the Yin family's current plight. You have lived in comfort for over a decade, so you will not be able to avoid the burden that you must bear. But don't worry. I will get revenge for you on Chen Chuxiu for his improper conduct toward you. Yin Jiaro hung her head, resembling a straw man on its last legs after being knocked over by a storm. Yin Shuo thought that she would not respond, turning around and leaving. That day, when will it be? Yin Jiaro's voice was hoarse, as she suddenly spoke. Of course, this was referring to regaining power in court, collapsing Marquis Gu's manor, and returning to being below one and above all others. Yin Shuo stopped in his tracks but did not say before continuing out. Chapter 264 Fight for the Sake of the Younger Generation, Part 5. Western Kuan's army stretches up to the Qinling mountain range in the north through Weiju and Zhuguan. Head General's judgment was correct. They want to open up two battlefronts. Inside the military tent hung a map of the border region, while the two walls to its side were covered by their military banner. Below the banners sat 2 rows of military officers. Jiyu Huijiang held his sword and drew a line from Weiju to Zhuguan, then all the way north. His mind was filled with the situations of the various cities along the way. How large was their population? How much food did they have stored? How many soldiers were stationed there? After so many years of fighting, all of these conditions were committed to memory to give himself a foundation to work from. In this battle, Western Kuan's path to victory relies on surprise attacks with their cavalry and through their numbers. To the first point, we are already prepared for their attack. To the second point, as the defenders, being at a numerical disadvantage will not create too much of a problem. Everyone nodded their heads in agreement. Based on the current conditions, there will be nothing unusual about this battle other than the large numbers of troops involved. Laro Jin slapped the table. That's right. Haven't we followed the head general into all manners of dangerous battles before? What can this even be considered? Ha ha ha. Jiyu Huijiang did not say anything, as he looked at the various cities on the border. Jiyu Shubai and Jiyu Jujii stood to the side in their armor and did not agree with Laro Jin's opinion. Before setting out, Jiyu Huijiang had told them that this would be a once-in-a-lifetime war. It would be something that would scarcely come about once every 100 years, so how could it be so simple? Everyone. Jiyu Huijiang turned around, and everyone suddenly stopped laughing, waiting for him to continue. He looked at every single person in the room. Everyone has grown accustomed to being passive and taking blows from Western Kuan, and that's why you're able to feel satisfied with just pushing Western Kuan's army away. Is that not right? The smiles disappeared from everyone's faces. To members of the army, being passive and taking blows was a matter of great humiliation. But Jiyu Huijiang was right. When Western Kuan launched their assault on Eastern Ling's border, they had fought them off. They had chased them away from the border, which made it their victory. Laro Jin said with great difficulty, but didn't Head General say that our Eastern Ling is a polite society that absolutely will not do something like invading another country? His Majesty has also stated this in court. That's why we treated Western Kuan's special envoy so well, even though we knew that they had wicked intentions. That was why they never even considered what they could do aside from passively defending. Jiyu Huijiang smiled. Laro Jin was a war hawk, and he had always complained about Emperor Ning's priority on peace. Things are different now. My Eastern Ling favors peace, but Western Kuan continues in its bullying ways and continuously invades our Eastern Ling's borders. I, Jiyu Huijiang, am a scholarly general, but I have been given no other choice than to invade Western Kuan's territory. Do you understand? What? He wanted to set foot on Western Kuan's territory? The atmosphere inside the tent immediately became joyous. They had followed Jiyu Huijiang and protected the border for many years, but they have never seen what Western Kuan's border cities look like. They have been wanting to go and take a look for a long time. If this sort of talk had been brought up before, they would surely be given a stern scolding by Jiyu Huijiang. They would be told that they were soldiers meant to protect the country and its people. Were they bandits who would invade another country and use force to steal? This time, it was Jiyu Huijiang who brought it up. They were so happy that they almost did not dare believe it. Yang Hua was the steadiest of the officers present. While he was elated, he very quickly calmed back down. Head General, you have never agreed to launch an assault on Western Kuan, saying that if we did it, we would be no different from Western Kuan's barbarians. Why have you suddenly changed your way of thinking? This was also something that many in the tent wanted to ask. Jiyu Huijiang fell silent for a moment, recalling a moment from the past. His mind flew far, far into the past. When I was 17, I followed my father to battle. At that time, I was the same as Yang Zheng and the others, hiding outside the tent to eavesdrop on what the generals were talking about while thinking that the adults inside did not know. Everyone's eyes instantly turned to the entrance of the tent, and Yang Hua strode out of the tent. Sure enough, he found Yang Zheng sneakily hiding outside. Jiyu Shubai nearly died to one of his plots. At his age, he did not want to be in a position where he had to stay at home due to old age and send his sons off to war. Rather than that, it would be better to just press on and finish things decisively. Hand Western Kuan a decisive defeat and leave their army afraid to invade ever again. Father. Jiyu Shubai stepped forward. Son is the young general of the Jiyu family army. The burden cannot be borne by father alone. Jiyu Jujii and Jiyu Hanmo also stepped forward, as the seated officers also stood up. Jiyu Huijiang gently laughed. Isn't that why I called all of you over? We, father and sons, will be going to war. Of course, it's not just for you guys. It's also for Yang Zheng, for Huayin, for all of the military family's younger generation to never be troubled by war again. Chapter 265 Liu Yinyan, Part 1. The sunlight at dawn was dim, as a few groups departed from the Jiyu family's army's main camp. Jiyu Huaijiang stood in place and watched Jiyu Juji and Jiyu Hanmo depart. Jiyu Shubai stood to the side while feeling puzzled. Father, why did you not let Sun go? In this war, Western Kuan was opening up multiple fronts. He sent Jiyu Juji and Jiyu Hanmo out with the older generals to the border cities to fight together. He only kept Jiyu Shubai behind. He was the young general of the Jiyu family's army. He was the one who should have been the top candidate to be sent out. After a long time, Jiyu Huaijiang retracted his gaze. My judgment is that Zhu Guan is where Western Kuan's main army will attack. That's why I have kept you here. Jiyu Huaijiang's judgment on the battlefield had practically never been wrong before. Jiyu Shubai did not understand his judgment but subconsciously decided to believe it. So that's the case. That's also good. Second brother and third brother have just been conferred their titles as generals and are lacking in experience. Having them gain experience on the smaller battlefields is better than having them go directly to the main battlefield. Jiyu Huaijiang looked at him with a smile. Father knew. How could my sons possibly fall out and become enemies while contending for the same love? As long as things between you and Juji are fine, everything is good. This was the first time that he had ever brought this up in front of Jiyu Shubai. Jiyu Shubai had always believed that he was not worried about it, but it turned out that he was indeed worried about it. It was just that he never said it. Back when father engaged Yu Fu to me, why did you not consider second brother's feelings, not even saying anything to him? What? All of you like Yu Fu? Does father need to say something to all of you one by one? Jiyu Huaijiang was in a good mood and rolled his eyes at him. Don't think that father engaged Yu Fu to you because I favor you. Father wasn't paying attention to you guys. Father was paying attention to whom Yu Fu liked. If she liked Juji, father would have engaged her to him. Jiyu Shubai let out a sigh of relief. A father who did not know how to take care of a daughter was able to judge whom this daughter liked. Was it luck or was it ability? Regardless, it was fortunate that his judgment was correct. Let's go. While the sun has yet to rise, follow father up Zhu Mountain. Zhu Guan had mountains to its two sides. The one with the sheerest peak was known as Zhu Mountain because of how it rose straight into the clouds like bamboo. Those who have never been to the border might think that Zhu Mountain was covered in bamboo, but that was not the case. The mountain was heavily forested and had all sorts of tall trees that could conceal the sky. Father, there won't be a path to follow if we go any further. Father and son only had a small group of escorting soldiers with them. Halfway up the mountain, the sun began to rise beautifully. They had no time to appreciate the beauty. Looking up, they found themselves at a mountain face, and it suddenly felt as though they had come up against an impossible task. Jiyu Huaijiang wiped the sweat from his brow. We will continue until we reach the peak. Just behind Zhu Mountain is Western Kuan's territory. I'm bringing you to take a look at their camp. The final stretch up to the top of the mountain saw them climb up using rattan that hung down from the top of the sheer face. Be careful and conceal yourself. Zhu Mountain is a clear marker on the border of the two countries. Right now, it could be said that we're in Eastern Ling's borders, and it could also be said that we're in Western Kuan's border. Everyone lay down on the peak and looked over to the other side of Zhu Mountain, instantly becoming enlightened. There was an endless stretch of black tents, stern and solemn. The character Liu could be seen on Western Kuan's army banners. Jiyu Huaijiang said, Western Kuan's head general, Liu Kuang, is said to lead a force of 500,000 troops. That is a force that could destroy all countries. Based on the tents, can you tell if that number is true or false? In Western Kuan, women were able to participate in warfare like men. However, there were not many who were able to fight on the same level as the men. Liu Yinyan could be considered outstanding. Therefore, Jiyu Shubai was able to clearly remember this name. Over a decade ago, Liu Yinyan was the most promising female general of Western Kuan, and she was tasked by Emperor Kuan to lead the army in an attack on Eastern Ling, and it was during the battle at Zhuguan that she was captured alive by Jiyu Huaijiang. To have their general captured alive was a great humiliation for Western Kuan, especially since this general was also female. At that time, Western Kuan offered to exchange 500 captured Eastern Ling soldiers for Liu Yinyan, and Jiyu Huijiang had accepted, but Liu Yinyan, having been captured, felt humiliated. While the guards were not paying attention, she committed suicide by poison. At that time, Liu Kuang was the deputy general, and he executed the 500 captives in a fit of rage. Jiyu Huijiang pointed to the other side, just outside of Zhu Guan's gates. It was there. I watched on, as 500 soldiers were decapitated, blood flowing like a river. It was only now that Jiyu Shubai understood why Zhu Guan would be the main battlefield. Chapter 266 Siege of 1,000 Snakes, Part 2, Head General, Young General, the sun has already come up. It would be bad if we were discovered by Western Kuan's soldiers. Let's quickly descend the mountain. They had already seen what needed to be seen and recorded what needed to be recorded. They turned around and started descending the mountain when they suddenly heard a rustling sound come from the forest. Who is it? The rustling sound did not stop. On the contrary, it seemed to get even closer, as the sounds came from every direction. They seemed to have fallen into an encirclement. Jiyu Shubai said, "It doesn't seem to be humans. It seems to be some sort of animal." Animal? What sort of animal would move through the forest and work together like this? Hearing the sound get closer and closer, these animals were clearly rushing toward them. Behind them was a cliff face that provided no protection, while in front of them, there was a forest full of creatures blocking their path. There was no way to flee. Everyone tacitly pulled out their swords, blocking Jiyu Huijiang and Jiyu Shubai behind them. Head General, Young General, if it's something that we can't defeat, you two climb down the cliff first. These soldiers did not fear death. Even if they were covered in goosebumps, there was not the slightest hesitation when they moved to defend their general. Even if some sort of spirit, tiger, or bear came out, they would use their flesh and blood to fight and create an opening for their head general. Jiyu Huijiang said in a low voice, "Don't panic and look closer." His voice was like a calming pill, as the soldiers' hands no longer trembled. They watched closely for any movements in the forest. Whoosh! A horrific breathing sound filled the air, and a sharp-eyed guard immediately pointed to the right. "It's a snake. A venomous snake." It was not just one. There were 7 or 8 venomous snakes. They had black bodies with gold ring patterns on them. With their tongues out, they advanced. "They're over there too." Another guard pointed to the left, as venomous snakes advanced toward them. This sight was truly horrifying. They had killed countless enemies on the battlefield, and they never feared their enemies' swords. However, they have never experienced such a terrifying scene. Hundreds upon thousands of venomous snakes rushed toward them as if being controlled by someone. With a swing of the sword, a guard cut off the head of a snake. The decapitated snake's eyes shone with enmity, as the head suddenly flew toward the soldier that had cut its head off. The soldier did not expect that a decapitated snake would still be able to move and was not able to react in time. Just as his leg was about to be bitten, a sword cut the head in two. This time, the snake's head fell completely still. The snake's blood dripped from the tip of Jiyu Shubai's sword. When cutting a snake, make sure to cut it 7 inches down, or it won't die immediately. On the contrary, it will seek revenge. While he spoke, another 2 venomous snakes approached. This time, the soldiers were prepared, cleanly cutting through the snake's weak point. Jiyu Huijiang said, "Retreat to the edge of the cliff." The closer they were to the edge of the cliff, the narrower it became, allowing for their smaller numbers to shine. As the group retreated, the snakes surged forward. While Jiyu Shubai killed the snakes, he said, "These snakes are definitely being driven to do this by something. It could be that Western Kuan's people knew that we would come here to scout and deliberately set this up." One of the soldiers was bitten on the leg, and the snakes in the back rushed forward but were cut in two by Jiyu Shubai. "Back up." The soldier who had been bitten immediately dove to the back, and Jiyu Shubai took his place, continuing to kill snakes. The hundreds upon thousands of snakes continued to charge forward like an endless river. Jiyu Huijiang was relatively safe in the back. Lowering his head to take a look, Black blood was seeping out of the soldier's leg, and his lips were already purple. Hold on. He tore his sleeve and wrapped it tight around the wound to try and stop the poison from spreading. Father, take care of this. He handed the one with the most fragrance to Jiyu Huaijiang, then gave the rest to the other soldiers. Carry him. The camp has medicine to treat snake venom. He pointed at the soldier on the ground, then took the lead and headed toward the group of snakes. With the amount of fragrance reduced, the snakes might no longer be afraid. He had to perform an experiment. Young general, you mustn't. The soldiers behind him wanted to stop him, but it was already too late. They could only watch Jiyu Shubai walk into the middle of the circle of snakes. Whoosh as he moved, the group of snakes seemed to hesitate, staying unmoved near his feet. Suddenly, they moved as if to attack. Everyone was on edge, while Jiyu Shubai remained in place, his body completely stiff. After a long moment, the group of snakes complacently retreated until they completely disappeared from view. Chapter 267 Multicolored Gem of Triumph, Part 3, Young Miss, Lord Marquis has sent a letter back. Qian was old, but he still happily ran over to the western wing with the letter in hand. He was laughing like a little child. He had always been steady, and it was very rare to see him so lively. The maidservants in the western wing secretly laughed, as they never expected the old steward to be this sort of person. Hearing that a letter had been delivered, Yu Fu rejoiced. She quickly went outside to take a look and found the maidservants standing to the side and laughing at Qian, while he himself seemed to be clueless. In the past, Yu Fu had only seen him occasionally get lively in front of Jiyu Huaijiang, but he always remained calm in front of the younger generation. He was even stricter when dealing with the manor's servants. Who knew if he was happy due to receiving the letter, or if he was finally viewing Yu Fu as the master of the manor and was showing his respect. Yu Fu did not think about it too much, receiving the letter. Steward, please be seated. Have some tea before we speak. Right, why was the letter not sent to fourth brother first? Qian was stunned. In recent days, he had grown accustomed to sending the manor's affairs to Yu Fu's side to be handled. Jiyu Wenqing was only responsible for receiving guests and matters outside the manor. All of the manor's internal matters were left to Yu Fu. Seeing Qian freeze, Yu Fu did not say anything else. Drink some tea first. I'll take a look at what the letter says, then tell you about it. She read the letter very quickly. Quickly skimming through, she did not see any bad news. It was only then that she calmed down to carefully read through the letter. Qian saw her reaction to the letter and knew that Lord Marquis and the young sirs were safe. Only then did he pick up his cup. Head General wrote in the letter that the situation on the border is still under control and there is no danger for the time being. It's just that they climbed up Zhu Mountain a few days ago to do some scouting, and they were attacked by a swarm of venomous snakes. They believe it's one of Western Kuan's tactics, thus they wrote back to ask me what the cause could be. Heh! A swarm of venomous snakes. Qian suddenly recalled that time that Su Yunyang had been bitten by a venomous snake. Just one snake was enough to nearly claim Su Yunyang's life, so how could a swarm be anything good? He had a nervous look on his face, and Yu Fu gently said, "Don't worry. They're all fine." The period of time after the Dragon Boat Festival is when snakes and insects appear the most. I made preparations beforehand and gave eldest brother a fragrance to ward off snakes. The medicine that I had third brother bring along is able to ease heat fatigue and treat toxins. If they have been frequently consuming the medicines, even if they were bitten by a venomous snake, they would be able to hold on until they could be treated by a military doctor. Qian's expression relaxed. That's good. That's good. It's fortunate that young Miss knows all of these methods for countering poisons, otherwise, wouldn't Lord Marquis and the young sirs have suffered greatly at the hands of Western Kuan? He reflected on the time since Yu Fu arrived at Marquis Gu's manor. At the start, the title of Immortal Practitioner of Poison had caused him to worry, but he slowly discovered that rather than poisoning others, Yu Fu was one who treated poisons. Aside from when Qi Ting had rashly framed her, he had never seen her poison anyone in the manor. On the contrary, Jiyu Huaijiang, Jiyu Shubai, and Su Yunyang were all treated by Yu Fu when they were poisoned. This sort of immortal practitioner of poison, how was she any different from the deity of medicine, who could save people from death's doorstep? Yu Fu smiled and said, "All right, bring the letter to fourth brother and the others too." She handed the letter back inside the envelope and suddenly noticed something hard inside the envelope. Emptying it into her palm, she found that it was a gem roughly the size of a fingernail that shone brilliantly. What was amazing about it was that this gem was a different color depending on the angle. In just a few moments, Yu Fu saw 7 colors. Qian glanced at her palm and said in shock, "Ah, isn't this one of Western Kuan's multicolored gems?" Yu Fu had never heard of this multicolored gem and immediately handed it to Qian. "What's a multicolored gem?" Qian cheerfully said, "This is the rumored mystical gem. It's a gem that's found in the jade mines on the border between Western Kuan and Eastern Ling. There's no guarantee that one the size of a fingernail could be found in the entirety of the mine. Head General and the others must have found the multicolored gem on Zhu Mountain. They will definitely return from this war triumphant." Chapter 268 5 Phoenix Coronet, Part 4. With Princess Danyang's and Kuan Yuyang's weddings gradually approaching, less and less focus was placed on the war at the border. Eastern Ling's court never focused too much on the situation at the border. After so many years, Jiyu Huijiang had never lost before, so there was no need for them to worry. Rather than worry about the situation at the border, it would be better to think about how they should congratulate Jiyu Huijiang when he returned. There were also some who were worried. Before their triumphant return, the Jiyu family already had 5 people with ranks and titles. If they returned victorious, would His Majesty not confer titles to the other 3 sons? Jiyu Huijiang had a good life. He only took 1 wife, yet his 6 sons were all capable. Even the daughter that he had adopted was intelligent and observant. She also had the support of the deity of medicine. The life of this princess was sure to be better than the lives of the 2 princesses who were about to get married. In a small courtyard at the post house, the candles burned bright in the night in preparation for the grand wedding ceremony that was to take place after the sun rose. May your marriage last a lifetime. May your marriage be blessed with happiness and harmony. May you be blessed with many children and grandchildren. May you be blessed with a long life. The wedding nanny who had come from Western Kuan brushed Kuan Yuyang's hair. While brushing her hair, she recited these blessings. While doing this, she also helped her put on her jeweled earrings and a heavy red and gold phoenix coronet. Kuan Yuyang lifted her face with her red lips and smiled, "Nanny, it's so heavy. Be a little gentler." A look of pity flashed through the eyes of the middle-aged palace servant who had been called Nanny. "My dear princess, what are you calling heavy? Did you know that the phoenix coronet worn by the princess born of the empress has a total of 8 phoenixes and weighs a total of 8 jin and 8 taels? Initially, your phoenix coronet also had 8 phoenixes, but it's fine, Nanny. Her coronet and cape were brought over from Western Kuan. Normally speaking, it was common to give the princess who was coming over in a political marriage a bit more standing. In Western Kuan, she was a princess born of a concubine, and the Board of Rights provided her with a phoenix coronet with 8 phoenixes, putting her on the same level as a princess born of the empress. At present, the coronet that the nanny placed on her head only had 5 phoenixes. It was put her below the status of even the princesses born of concubines, who would often have coronets with 7 phoenixes. Kuan Yuyang smiled and said, "His Majesty of Eastern Ling is kind. He clearly knows that Western Kuan is using me as a cover for their plans, yet he is still allowing me to marry young Sir Ning. Their treatment of me has not changed, so what is there for me to complain about?" Naturally, the nanny understood that Emperor Ning was kind. She too was grateful. His Majesty of Eastern Ling is kind and generous, and this servant naturally understands it. But that Princess Danyang is a little too domineering. Fearing that princess wearing the same number of phoenixes as her while sharing a wedding day, they actually had princess remove 3 phoenixes. By removing 1 phoenix, it would have been enough to show her status as princess born of Eastern Ling's empress, so why remove 3? If Kuan Yuyang was told to remove 1 phoenix, that would be Princess Danyang improving her own status. But having her remove 3 phoenixes was clearly just an attempt to humiliate her. Western Kuan's people were belligerent and placed great importance on face. To the nanny, this sort of humiliation was even more difficult to accept than death. Nanny. Kuan Yuyang straightened her coronet and coolly said, "We will be going into the palace shortly. Nanny must remember. Today is a day of celebration for me, and as someone who is coming to get married from Western Kuan, nobody must show any unhappiness. Do you understand?" The nanny froze. She had thought that Kuan Yuyang was a lively person who did not care much about how many phoenixes were on her coronet, but she seemed to be quite profound with what she said. "Princess," Jenna brought out the phoenix coronet and checked how it would look on her head. "Princess needs to quickly get dressed and put on makeup. It's not for the sake of improving your husband's image but for Princess's own image." This servant heard that the princess from Western Kuan got up before the sun came up to get her makeup done. "Our princess is a natural beauty, but how could any good come from being pushed down by her beauty?" These words immediately made Princess Danyang alert, as she glared at Jenna. "Nonsense. Even if this princess wore my usual formal clothes, they would be better than what that lowly Kuan Yuyang could wear. She is just a sacrifice sent by an enemy country to serve as a distraction. Loved by neither her father nor her mother, will she not also need to pay her respects to this princess?" Palace maid and wedding nanny stood to the side, respectfully holding up a horncomb. "Princess, please come and get your makeup done. May your marriage last a lifetime. May your marriage be blessed." All right, there's no need to recite such meaningless stuff. This one does not want to grow old together with Yin Shuo. You just need to concern yourself with making me look beautiful. Don't let that seductress from Western Kuan steal my glory." The wedding nanny hesitantly said, "But princess, this must be recited whenever a girl gets married for the husband and wife to have a harmonious." Jenna gave the wedding nanny a look and received the horncomb, cutting her off, and the wedding nanny quickly retreated. While brushing Princess Danyang's hair, she coaxed her into a good mood. "Our princess is noble beyond compare. Even if those words are not recited, would her husband dare to bully the princess? Princess, don't worry. By having that princess from Western Kuan only wear 5 phoenixes on her coronet, she will suffer a great humiliation. How could she possibly steal your Gelroy?" Princess Danyang joyously looked into the mirror. "You really know how to make me happy." Chapter 269 No Longer a Citizen of Western Kuan, Part 5. Early in the morning, Yin Shuo was wearing his red wedding clothes, and he had been standing in the ancestral hall for quite some time. On the day of the wedding, he needed to kowtow to his parents, but Yin Yang was far away and could not come back, thus he had no choice but to perform this rite in the ancestral hall. It was also better that he could not come back. In his mind, he did not truly think of today as his grand wedding day. Every word that Princess Danyang said to humiliate him at Chunhee Garden echoed in his mind. Thinking of that plump and arrogant woman dressed in decadent clothes, adorned with pearls looking down at him with disdain caused his gaze to turn cold. She dared to humiliate him, and he would eventually return the favor. After standing for a long time until his legs started to feel numb, he turned to the side. "Where's the young miss? After I go into the palace, she will be the only master in the manor. Welcoming the princess into the manor will rely on her thoroughness." The servant behind him bowed, replying to eldest young sir, "The wound on the young miss' forehead still hasn't healed. She said that it's inconvenient to go out and receive guests and cannot go outside today." "It still hasn't healed after such a long time?" Yin Shuo turned to look at him with a piercing gaze. "What are you all doing? Could it be that you haven't been bringing a doctor in every day to change her dressing?" Nothing must happen to Yin Jiaro's face. He still needed to rely on Yin Jiaro to gain more information on the cabinet. The servant panicked. "We have. Of course, we servants have. Last time, the doctor said that the wound has already formed a scab, but for some reason, when the scab was removed, it started bleeding again. The doctor initially said that it wouldn't leave a scar, but now, the eldest young miss of a venerated family did not need to work. She did not even need to go out. How could her scab have been removed? There was only one possibility. Yin Jiaro herself did not want the wound to heal and was deliberately removing the scab. Very well, everyone seems to be going against me. Good, very good. He repeated himself numerous times to the point that the servants thought that he was mad at him. Frightened, he dropped to his knees to beg for forgiveness. Yin Shuo sneered, "Today is the day of my wedding. I don't want to argue with her. Go and tell the young miss that if her wound still has not healed by the next time that the doctor visits, there's no need for it to ever heal." After saying this, he strode out of the hall. After waiting for him to get further away, the servant trepidatiously raised his head. Turning his head, he saw the figure in red gradually move further and further away until he disappeared from view outside the ancestral hall's courtyard. For some reason, he felt that the red clothes that Yin Shuo wore did not have the slightest celebratory atmosphere. "Princess, it's almost time. When should we set out?" In the post house, all of the people who had come from Western Kuan were waiting for Kuan Yuyang's order. She would be the one to decide when they set out. Whether they set out earlier or later, there were many rules to such a thing. It was no good if they went too early, as it would show that she was too lacking in restraint. After Western Kuan mobilized its army, there were quite a few in Eastern Ling's court who criticized her background, so if she went too early, she would just be mocked. It was even worse if she went too late. For Emperor Ning to allow her to get married as a princess meant to improve relations between two countries was already very generous. If she showed the slightest bit of negligence, it was possible that it would become a topic of discussion for others. When it came to her life, Kuan Yuyang needed to make the most appropriate decision. After taking a deep breath, she smiled at everyone with a radiant look. "There's no need to wait. We will set out now." When it came to survival, face was not too important. This was something that she had learned from her many years of living in Western Kuan's imperial palace. Apologies, she is now a wife to Eastern Ling's imperial family. She is no longer a citizen of Western Kuan. Outside the small courtyard, a man in red clothes walked in with a smile. His demeanor was quite casual. Kuan Yuyang looked at him in disbelief. Was this not her future husband? "What? Do I look too handsome today that my dear wife has become dazed?" Uncle Ning walked over to Kuan Yuyang's side and unreservedly placed an arm around her waist. The nanny's heart tightened upon seeing this, never expecting Eastern Ling's people to also be so unreserved. Even in Western Kuan, where the people were more open, an unmarried couple would not be so intimate. Kuan Yuyang blushed. It was not just a result of being held at the waist, but it was also that he had personally come to receive her, relieving her of the awkwardness of entering the palace on her own. He had also spoken up for her, leaving the official unable to say anything against her. Behind Uncle Ning was a group of relatives from the imperial family that looked at Kuan Yuyang with approval. "This brat is treating the princess like a real treasure, insisting on personally coming to fetch you. We were teasing him for wanting to be a husband to Western Kuan's imperial family, but hearing what Princess had to say, it's clear to see that Princess is an insightful person unlike the average person from Western Kuan." When that person mentioned the average person from Western Kuan, he glanced at the official from Western Kuan before looking away with disdain. He then cupped his hands toward Kuan Yuyang. "In the past, we misjudged Princess. Princess, please do not blame us. Today, we will personally welcome Princess into the palace as an apology." Chapter 270 Another Phoenix Hairpin, Part 1. After this commotion, Kuan Yuyang arrived even later than Princess Danyang. The two weddings took place at the same time in Dierui Palace, with Emperor Ning personally sanctioning the weddings. Civil and military officials, along with members of the imperial family, were all present. This was an exceptionally grand scene. Princess Danyang arrived with assistance from the palace servants of the Western Palace, while Yin Shuo arrived alone from outside the palace. The newlywed couple walked in on their own, with neither saying a word to the other. Who knew if it was because they thought they were not a couple or if they still waiting for their new partners? The officials who had arrived early quietly discussed this. "I initially thought that after Prime Minister Yin had suffered that humiliation at the hands of Princess Danyang, he would definitely bring up cancelling the engagement. Who knew that he would not react and that His Majesty would not react, and the wedding ended up happening. But that does explain why the princess doesn't look happy, and Prime Minister Yin also looks unhappy. This marriage is quite awkward. The newlyweds were awkward, and the ones who had come to the banquet felt even more awkward. They had prepared a whole host of compliments, yet the newlywed couple was completely indifferent, thus the compliments that they had prepared could not be said. It was best to not say them. Saying them would not make them happy, it was possible that it would make them annoyed. It was only after Uncle Ning arrived with his imperial relatives to receive Kuan Yuyang into the palace that everyone felt that there was a celebratory atmosphere, as everyone went over to congratulate them. Congratulations, congratulations. May the two of you enjoy a lifetime of harmony. You two really are a match made by the heavens despite coming from opposing families. Congratulations. May the two of you have a beautiful child soon. Everyone offered their congratulations, and not a single one was a repeat of what someone else had said. Kuan Yuyang was stunned by the overwhelming favor. She initially thought that she would be shown contempt because of Western Kuan's actions at the border, but who knew that everyone would be so kind and welcoming toward her? How could she know that this group of people had come over after dealing with the oppressive atmosphere around Princess Danyang and Yin Shuo? They were all too eager to find someone to congratulate. Many thanks to everyone for the kind word. Uncle Ning cheerfully cupped his hands and returned the kindness. Kuan Yuyang's clothes made movement inconvenient and did not know if she should return the gesture. She could only watch on from the side in a daze. After a brief moment, tears started to well up in her eyes and nearly overflowed onto her face. Seeing that she arrived late but still received everyone's congratulations and well wishes, Princess Danyang's red wedding handkerchief had become an unseemly mess from being wrung so hard. Now that she saw tears well up in her eyes, she had finally found something to hold on to. Father Emperor. Looking at the tears in the eyes of that princess from Western Kuan. It's clear that she doesn't want to marry Uncle. She is resentful of Father Emperor's kindness and clearly looks down on Father Emperor. Her shrill screams attracted the attention of everyone present. Kuan Yuyang was so overwhelmed by her emotions that she was almost unable to react to what had just been said. By the time that she reacted, everyone was looking at the tears in her eyes before quickly averting their gazes. The tears in her eyes were clearly from joy. How could she possibly hold any resentment? Princess Danyang was truly trying to make trouble out of nothing. What nonsense are you spouting? After receiving information on the wedding date, Western Kuan's princess specifically came to the palace to give her thanks. How could she feel resentment? Emperor Ning sat at the head spot and quietly scolded Princess Danyang. Because there were two newlywed couples today, aside from Emperor Ning, his imperial uncle and aunt sat just a bit lower. They were Emperor Ning's uncle and aunt, and they were Uncle Ning's parents. The imperial uncle leaned close to Emperor Ning and whispered something to him, causing Emperor Ning to look over at Kuan Yuyang. The newlywed husband in red was whispering something into her ear, and Kuan Yuyang's face instantly turned red. I am emotional from everyone's kindness. It's not because you personally came to receive me. She actually gave Kuan Yuyang a phoenix hairpin. Kuan Yuyang was originally wearing a 5-phoenix coronet, but after the phoenix hairpin was added, it immediately resembled a 6-phoenix coronet. Diana hastily stopped her. Princess, keep your voice down. That is His Majesty's imperial aunt, your grandaunt. As a member of the imperial family, it's natural that she would have a phoenix hairpin. Keep your voice down and don't let His Majesty hear you. Princess Danyang was dizzy with anger. There are so many members in the imperial family that they can't be counted. Based on what you said, this one will need to refer to Kuan Yuyang as imperial aunt in the future. She should dream on. Earlier, His Majesty was told something by his imperial uncle. He must have said that Western Kuan's princess doesn't look good wearing a 5-phoenix coronet. His Majesty must have only allowed his imperial aunt to give her the phoenix hairpin after that. You absolutely must not shout about it, or it will be opposing His Majesty's intentions. Naturally, Princess Danyang understood this. Without Emperor Ning's permission, they would not dare to do something like giving away a phoenix hairpin. But she still felt displeased. She was unhappy with Kuan Yuyang having the slightest bit of glory. Sister Danyang, don't worry. I also wore a phoenix hairpin into the palace. If I give it to you, wouldn't it also have the effect of suppressing Western Kuan's princess? A voice suddenly came from behind Princess Danyang, and she immediately turned around. It was actually Yu Fu standing there with a smile. In her hand was a phoenix hairpin that completely resembled the one that the two brides were wearing. Chapter 271 Talk to the Side, Part 2. Having been conferred the title of princess, it was natural that Yu Fu would have a phoenix hairpin, like other females of the imperial family. Princess Danyang was elated at first. Like this, she would still be able to completely suppress Kuan Yuyang, but she quickly calmed back down. Something was wrong. How could Yu Fu be so generous and give her her own phoenix hairpin? She racked her brains and quickly furrowed her brow. Are you trying to kill me? I'm currently wearing a coronet with 8 phoenixes, the style meant for the princess born of the empress. If another phoenix is added, it would be the style of the empress. Are you not wholeheartedly trying to get me killed? No matter how noble a princess born of the empress was, she could not compare with the empress. Wearing a coronet with 9 phoenixes was a capital crime. Yu Fu smiled innocently. Does Sister Danyang not want it? Then I'll take it and leave. If you don't want it, just don't take it. Why are you so angry? Emperor Ning turned and saw Yu Fu, happily waving to her. Yu Fu, come here and let us see you. We haven't seen you in a long time. Ever since Emperor Ning had been cured by Zun Kai, he liked Yu Fu even more, treating her more and more like a princess born of the empress. Yu Fu put on a bitter expression and slowly walked over. Surprised, Emperor Ning said, "What's wrong? Who bullied you? We are also your father emperor. Tell us, and we will punish them for you." That's not it. Yu Fu said that there was nothing, but she turned to glance at Princess Danyang. I wanted to give this phoenix hairpin to Sister Danyang, but Sister Danyang did not want it. Princess Danyang's heart tightened for fear of Yu Fu saying something bad about her. Sure enough, Emperor Ning looked at her unhappily. What was wrong with her today? Causing trouble again and again on her wedding day, did she want to have the imperial family's image completely ruined along with her? When he looked back at Yu Fu, his expression slowly returned to normal. Since your sister Danyang doesn't want it, you can keep it for yourself. When you get married, you can also wear it. Yu Fu deliberately pretended to be naughty, but I worked so hard to bring it into the palace. I don't want to bring it back with me. Ah, I know. I can give it to Yuyang. What does your majesty think? Yuyang? Emperor Ning thought for a bit before realizing that this was the name of the princess from Western Kuan. Are you and the princess from Western Kuan very close? Yu Fu fell silent for a moment. I hated her quite a bit at first. If not for Western Kuan's people, head general, eldest brother, and the others wouldn't need to leave the capital, but she is a pretty good person. She's different from the other people from Western Kuan. I want to be friends with her. Emperor Ning became spirited, and his imperial uncle also moved a little closer to listen. How is she different? Has your majesty not heard? When Uncle Ning led a group to the post house to pick up his bride, the envoy from Western Kuan didn't want Yuyang to leave early, saying that she was trampling on Western Kuan's image. Yuyang said that one can only be humiliated after doing something shameful. It was Western Kuan's actions that trampled on Western Kuan's image, not Eastern Ling. Emperor Ning slapped his thigh. Good. Well said. Imperial uncle, you really are fortunate, getting such a great daughter-in-law. Initially, the imperial uncle was unhappy with the idea of his son taking a princess from Western Kuan as a wife, as it was inevitable that he would be mocked as being the husband of Western Kuan's imperial family. But ever since his son met Western Kuan's princess at Chunhee Garden, it was as though he had become possessed, insisting on marrying her. He even said that as long as he married Western Kuan's princess, he would no longer gamble, and he would get a proper job in court. It was only then that the imperial uncle and imperial aunt accepted the princess from Western Kuan. Hearing what Yu Fu said, the imperial uncle felt completely at ease. It's your majesty who is fortunate. It's fortunate that Western Kuan sent a princess with keen insight. In the future, she will settle down and become a wife to my Eastern Ling's imperial family. This will also reduce your majesty's worries. Emperor Ning smiled brightly and waved to Yu Fu. Since that's the case, go ahead. Yu Fu spoke casually and placed Kuan Yuyang's hands in Uncle Ning's hands. Uncle, I will leave Yuyang to you. Based on the difference in generations, Yu Fu should indeed call him uncle. Uncle Ning did not put on any airs. Instead, he respectfully bowed toward her. Niece, I can't thank you enough for what you have done. If there's anything that uncle can do for you, just ask. His posture was very respectful, but his tone was very carefree. He truly sounded like a wanton son of a noble family. Yu Fu could not stop herself from rolling her eyes. He was only in his early 20s, yet he actually used the difference in generations to call her niece. She turned to leave and suddenly saw another figure dressed in red standing all alone. It was Yin Shuo. If not for his red clothes standing out, Yu Fu really would not have been able to tell that he was a groom. Compared to him, Uncle Ning's carefree and wanton attitude was far more pleasant. With a faint smile on his face, he walked over from quite far away. It still hasn't reached the auspicious hour, and the ceremony won't be taking place for some time. May this lowly official invite Princess Jinjiang to the side for a chat. Chapter 272 Go and Tell His Majesty Immediately, Part 3. Dreamy Palace was a large place, and it was where the princesses of the imperial family would get married, thus there was a garden to the side. Yin Shuo and Yu Fu had their conversation in the garden. There were no other people nearby, and there was no need to worry about being heard by others while remaining in view of the other guests. It's exceptionally hot, and it's already the middle of summer, yet the flowers in Dreamy Palace are blooming so beautifully. He reached out and ran his fingers through the flower petals without showing the slightest hint of emotion. Yu Fu suddenly recalled the first time that they had met. Jiu Juji and the others had taken her out to see linen at night, however, she ended up falling into the river before being saved by Jiu Shubai. At that time, Yin Shuo had appeared before her, completely soaked. First impressions are often important. Even if Jiu Shubai and the others suspected Yin Shuo at that time, Yu Fu had already started viewing him as a good person. Moreover, he was an exceedingly handsome person. It was only after determining that the one behind the plot to assassinate Jiu Shubai in Chengju was Yin Shuo that Yu Fu's view of him was completely ruined. All that remained for her were feelings of vigilance and indifference, but she still needed to pretend to be ignorant. With something as grand as two princesses getting married, it's natural that the imperial gardeners would be exceptionally careful with the flowers in hopes of them looking good. Speaking of this, I still haven't congratulated Prime Minister on getting married. While she was offering her congratulations, her expression showed that she was quite unhappy. She even felt awkward just saying it. Yin Shuo, who had looked dejected for most of the day, suddenly burst out laughing. You clearly know that this isn't a joyous matter for me or Princess Danyang, so what are you saying congratulations for? You're still so young, yet you're learning to just say niceties to suit the situation from others. Yu Fu also felt that there was nothing that could be done about it. This level of pleasantry still needs to be said. I know that you don't want to hear it, so that's why I only planned to offer my congratulations once. Who knew that you wouldn't be able to tolerate just that? The two went back and forth, and the tone of their conversation returned to normal, no longer feeling distant and unfamiliar. Yin Shuo lowered his head with a smile but did not speak. If others said this 10 or 20 times, he would not mind, but he did not want to hear Yu Fu say it even once. In his mind, how could she possibly be compared with others? Just now, you were trying to give the phoenix hairpin to Western Kuan's princess, didn't you? That's also something that you should do. When a princess born of a concubine gets married, she should wear a coronet with 7 phoenixes. Princess Danyang is a selfish and petty person, and she thought that by not allowing Western Kuan's princess to wear a coronet with 7 phoenixes would make herself look good. She has no clue that others think of her as an idiotic laughingstock. Yu Fu looked at him in shock. He became Prime Minister at the age of 21, and it did not happen because he relied on his identity as the previous Prime Minister's eldest son. It was more a result of how he handled court work. He was very smooth in court, even winning the favor of Emperor Ning and the other court officials. When secretly talking about others, using such ugly words to describe someone else was not something that Yin Shuo should do. Since you hate Princess Danyang so much, why not ask His Majesty to cancel the engagement? It's precisely because I hate her that I didn't cancel the engagement as she had hoped. More importantly, with the two of us getting married, she can no longer go after the eldest young sir of Marquis Gu's manor. You ought to be quite happy. Yin Shuo avoided the most important reason by bringing up some minor reasons. Yu Fu figured it out but did not expose it. I can't say anything about being happy or not. It would indeed cause me less of a headache if she visited Marquis Gu's manor less often, but it's all trivial. She has no right to affect the affairs of Marquis Gu's manor. Yin Shuo smiled. You're right. Even His Majesty might not have the right to affect them, much less Princess Danyang. This was what he meant by it. Yu Fu furrowed her brow and suddenly sneered. Many thanks for the love, Prime Minister. But I truly do wonder if someone like you know what love is. Even when she found out that he had dispatched someone with poison to assassinate Jiyu Shubai, her attitude toward him was not this distant. Yin Shuo was surprised. He did not know what he had said wrong to make her angry. Of course, I do. Ever since I met you for the first time at Marquis Gu's manor, love is not won through fighting or murder. Love is a beautiful thing. How can you talk about love with blooded hands? You're too frightening. Your ideas are too abnormal. Yin Shuo forcibly restrained his voice. Jiyu Shubai is the person to whom you are engaged. Before you love me, I can only use violent methods to get rid of him. I admit that I am selfish, but that's unrelated to my feelings for you. Then what is the relation? Yu Fu did not get angry. On the contrary, she laughed, pointing at Dierui Palace's main hall. Then how about this? You said that you want to marry me. Naturally, that would mean leaving the position of official wife for me. If you go in and tell His Majesty that you won't marry Princess Danyang, I will acknowledge your feelings. How about it? Chapter 273 Thank Your Majesty for Your Favor, Part 4. Yin Shuo could remain calm and cool in front of others, but he could not muster any of that in front of her. He was like a young man who had just fallen in love, not knowing how to act. Yu Fu, I clearly just told you. Yu Fu summoned an image of Princess Danyang's usual demeanor and copied it, jutting up her chin to look at Yin Shuo with a provocative look in her eyes. What a joke. In any case, I am someone who was personally conferred the title of princess by His Majesty. You repeatedly say that you want to marry me, yet you are going to marry someone else. Do you want me to be a concubine? I'll tell you that as long as you marry Princess Danyang today, don't even come close to me in the future. He had known her for quite some time, but this was the first time that he had ever seen her act so ruthlessly and willfully. A strange new feeling filled Yin Shuo's heart. She still cared about him. That was why she did not like that he was marrying Princess Danyang. Yu Fu saw him lower his head in silence and thought that she had been too successful in imitating Princess Danyang, instantly making Yin Shuo dislike her, and she quietly rejoiced. Prime Minister Yin, Princess Zhenjiang, it's time for the ceremony. Please return to the main hall. Outside the garden, a palace servant bowed and invited the two of them to return. Yu Fu turned around to look at Yin Shuo, and he suddenly lifted his head with a smile on his face. Immediately after this, he strode toward the main hall. That smile did not look like there was any hatred, and Yu Fu quietly thought to herself that this was bad. Could it be that I went too far and pushed him to have no choice but to ask His Majesty for the wedding to be cancelled? This is bad. Haven't I just picked up a stone and dropped it on my foot? She regretted her actions and did not even have someone to discuss this with. Her fourth brother, who was still in the capital, remained in the manor to take care of some work. Forget it, she would go to the main hall first and see what would happen. The imperial family's weddings were far more complicated than those of the common folk. A wedding official dressed in red directed all of the participants to where they should be standing. Because there were two couples getting married, the scene was even more complicated. Yu Fu, come over here. Yu Fu suddenly heard someone call to her. It turned out that it was the eldest prince, who was standing at the lead position of the princes. He was currently waving for her to come over. The second prince was a little slow to notice Yu Fu, and he was annoyed to have lost out to the eldest prince again until he noticed a golden glow on Yu Fu's head. Sister Yu Fu, you wore the accessory that I gave you. Yu Fu was thinking about the matter with Yin Shuo and was momentarily shocked from being pulled to the second prince's side. The eldest prince was quite displeased by how he intercepted her along the way. What accessories did you give to Yu Fu? Yu Fu, being willing to wear accessories that he had given her, made it clear that she was willing to acknowledge him, and the second prince's mood greatly improved. I had a jeweler made a set of head ornaments for Yu Fu. Yu Fu's only wearing a hairpin, but she still looks very good. It was only now that Yu Fu was able to react. Oh, there were two princesses getting married today, so it wasn't convenient to wear the phoenix hairpin, but it also couldn't be too plain. This hairpin was both a fitting color and not too plain, so I chose to wear this. Sister Yu Fu looks really good with it and would surely look even better wearing the full set. The second prince had a fawning look on his face, and the eldest prince rolled his eyes at him. Second brother's choice of words is incorrect. Yu Fu chose to only wear a hairpin to avoid stealing the attention from the two brides. If she wore the full set, would it not make the two brides look quite bad? The second prince sneered with contempt, then looked at Yu Fu's clothes. Compared to the wedding clothes of the two brides, she was even more eye-catching, and he was quite stunned by the sight. Your Majesty. The two couples were in position, and the wedding official was preparing to carry out the first rite when Yin Shuo suddenly spoke up. Emperor Ning was in the middle of telling his imperial uncle a joke and waved his hand. Prime Minister, what is it? Today is a day of celebration. If you have something to say, hurry up and say it. Don't miss the auspicious hour. Everyone's eyes were focused on Yin Shuo. Yu Fu was worried, Emperor Ning was imposing, and Princess Danyang was hopeful. Most people were waiting to watch an entertaining drama unfold. They wanted to see what would happen between Princess Danyang and Yin Shuo, this couple that seemed to get along but was actually quite conflicted. What to choose, whether to say it or not, Yin Shuo carried an immense burden. After a moment of silence, the image of Yin Yang leaving the capital on a snowy day in a small carriage appeared in his mind. No, he could not say it. He could not neglect everything. He could not waste the protection that Yin Yang had provided him. He could not allow the Yin family's generations of work to be ruined by his feelings. Emperor Ning was a little annoyed. Chem? He dragged this out quite a bit, both waiting and annoyed, but it was mostly a threatening tone. After a long time, Yin Shuo turned to Emperor Ning. Your Majesty, this subject just wanted to thank Your Majesty once more for your favor and thank Your Majesty for engaging Princess Danyang to this subject. For this subject to be able to marry Princess Danyang is this subject's good fortune. Chapter 274 More Than Just Inquire, Part 5. Yu Fu left the palace with her head down but was stopped at the road by two military horses. Fifth brother, sixth brother, what have you two come for? We came to pick you up. Today's banquet was sure to be exceedingly boring, so we came to pick you up to play. A personal guard came up from behind with Yu Fu's horse, and she pointed at Jiyu Xiong and Jiyu Yi. Wasn't it said that you two would be helping fourth brother in the manor? Since you've come out to play, won't fourth brother be overwhelmed with work? Yu Fu smoothly climbed on her horse. I'll be going back to the manor first to help fourth brother. I can't bully him like this. In the entirety of the manor, Jiyu Xiong and Jiyu Yi only dared to bully Jiyu Wenqing. Who told him to be so kind? Jiyu Xiong immediately took Yu Fu's reins to stop her. Little Yu Fu, don't be in such a rush. In truth, we didn't come out just to play. We also have proper work to attend to. Fourth brother has been busy in the manor, so he told us to go to Yu Shan building to see how Yu Guan is doing. When second brother left, he also left Miss Yarrow Yu in Yu Guan's care. While we are there, we will check up on Miss Yarrow Yu. Yu Fu nodded. All right, This can just barely be considered work. I just happen to be hungry, so let's go and taste Yu Shan Building's new dishes. Yu Fu had a good eye for talent, and Yu Guan was a good choice for a shopkeeper. Not only did he think of having performances to attract guests, but he also pushed the chefs to come up with new dishes. Regardless of whether it was performances or dishes, the consistent rotation of fresh ideas naturally brought an endless line of guests. Ji Yuyi laughed at her. Good. Earlier, you were saying that Ji Yu Xiong and I had just come out to play, but now, you're clearly the one who's feeling peckish and wants to eat some new dishes. Ah, that's not it. Did you not eat your fill during today's wedding banquet? Yu Fu had been given a fright by Yin Shuo, thinking that he really would ask Emperor Ning to cancel the wedding. How could she still have an appetite after that? After that, she felt a little disappointed to see Yin Shuo not ask for the wedding to be cancelled. In this famous capital, one of the court's young talents ended up deciding to ignore his feelings for the sake of rank and influence. You two have no idea just how strange the atmosphere of today's wedding was. Who could be in the mood to eat after that? First, Princess Danyang and Prime Minister Yin acted like strangers. The three siblings rode along on their horses, as Yu Fu recounted what happened in the palace, and there were no shortages of gasps. Behind them, a small group of guards from the Ji Yu family's army rode along to protect them. The citizens on the streets saw their group from far away and quickly moved to the side. Some of these citizens recognized members of the Ji Yu family army. Hey, isn't that Princess Zhenjiang? Those two would be young sirs from Marquis Gu's manor. Ji Yu Yi angrily said, it's only been just over a year since little Yu Fu came to the capital, yet the citizens already recognize you. We grew up in the capital, yet nobody recognizes us. Ji Yu Xiong self-mockingly said, when eldest brother and second brother go out, it's natural that everyone would recognize them, but it's fine. In a few years, when we get to make contributions on the battlefield, we will also be recognized by others. Ah, the two young sirs look exactly the same, so they must be the fifth and sixth young sirs. Did you not know? The youngest sons of Marquis Gu's manor are twins. The citizens' voices very quickly reached their ears, and Yu Fu said with a smile, fifth brother and sixth brother are still luckier than third brother and fourth brother. They immediately know who you are when they see your faces. Looking the same also has its benefits. Otherwise, with Marquis Gu's manor having so many sons, how could the citizens recognize all of them? They just needed to pick a couple of the important ones. Ji Yu Yi delightedly felt his face, saying it like this, it's also true. The three stopped outside Yu Shan Building. Yu Guan had received a report beforehand and came out with Hong Zui and Lu Xiu. Young miss, young sirs, you've finally arrived. Miss Yarrow Yu has been waiting in the third floor's Lanzi room for quite some time. It seems that she was quite worried. Worried? Has she fully recovered from her illness? Yarrow Yu told everyone about what happened on that day between Chen Chuxiu and Yin Ji Yarrow, and Ji Yu Xiong and Ji Yu Yi took turns cursing Yin Shuo. She had gained quite a bit of information from the two. It turned out that the person that Prime Minister Yin really likes is young Miss Yu Fu. Yu Fu furrowed her brow. I already made things clear with him today. Surely, he won't keep pursuing me after today. As for him having young Miss Yin inquire about the cabinet, this is something that we must defend against. Ji Yu Yi said, he fears that his power will be reduced, so he inquires all over about the cabinet. This is within reason. Miss Yarrow Yu, why did you feel that this would be unfavorable for our Marquis Gu's manor? Yarrow Yu thought for a moment, I can't quite say for certain. It's just intuition. I have a feeling that someone who can so coldly use their own sister will definitely use some underhanded tactics against Marquis Gu's manor. I am also worried that I am overthinking it, so I hesitated for a number of days but ultimately decided to tell you. Yarrow Yu's intuition is the same as mine. Yu Fu let out a long sigh. Have you guys ever considered that if Yin Shuo only wanted to inquire about information pertaining to the cabinet, why would he be willing to use young Miss Yin? Based on my understanding of him, what he wants to do is not inquire but, Ji Yu Xiong threw out a guess. Could it be, to have it destroyed? Chapter 275 An Arrow Through the Throat, Part 1. Yu Fu wrote about the situation in court in a letter and sent it to the border. At the same time, the first proper battle on the border was beginning. Smoke rose from Zhuguan, and the people around the city were in a panic. At the nearby Lesser Zhu Pass, General Xu and General Lu were standing by, ready to join in at any time. "General, aren't you a little too nervous? When the Jiyu family's army fights, when have they ever needed our help?" A subordinate quietly said this, and General Xu thought for a moment. Turning around, he descended from the top of the city wall. "You're right. It's just that I have been stationed at Lesser Zhu Pass for 5 years, and I see the smoke rising every year, but this is the first time that I have ever been able to hear the cannons from this far away, listening to the fighting. Just how fierce was the fighting from both sides. If not for him being tasked with being stationed at Lesser Zhu Pass, he really would have wanted to go to the front lines to see this once-in-a-lifetime fight." The soldiers followed his gaze and looked off into the distance. Aside from the billowing smoke, they could not see anything. At this time, I wonder if Weizhou's reserve troops have been dispatched to reinforce them. General Xu suddenly remembered something. If orders for reinforcements come from the front lines, immediately contact this general. Even into the afternoon, an order for reinforcements never came to Lesser Zhu Pass. All that did arrive was a report of victory, and the citizens in the city rejoiced. Head General Jiyu personally took to the battlefield. "It's natural that we would be victorious. With Head General present, we residents of Lesser Zhu Pass can live peacefully for decade." The citizens rejoiced, and the soldiers also discussed it. Only with the Jiyu family's army fighting on the front line can we enjoy a peaceful life at Lesser Zhu Pass. If the situation on the front lines was not so stable, we would also see some achievements at the costs of thousands of lives. Achievements obtained at the cost of thousands of lives. General Xu contemplated this saying and thought to himself that if the cost of obtaining achievements on the battlefield was thousands of lives, he would rather spend the rest of his life guarding Lesser Zhu Pass as a normal general with no military accomplishments. Western Kuan's general was chased away from Zhuguan and away from the area near Zhu Mountain. As part of the vanguard, Jiyu Shubai raised his arm and was about to order a victorious pursuit when he heard an order shouted out by a communications officer. An order from the head general: "Do not pursue the defeated enemy. The vanguard is to retreat back to the camp. Stop." The cavalry at the very front of the group pulled on their horses' reins, and the horses reared up, as sand was kicked up by their hooves. The soldiers' morale was low. In all of these years, they have never seen Western Kuan's border cities. They would just chase them away, but who knew that it would be the same this time around too? They looked over at Jiyu Shubai, and Jiyu Shubai looked over at the communications officer. This was not right. This was not what Jiyu Huijiang had told them before. He had said that they would be on the offensive more than on the defensive. They would leave Western Kuan too afraid to invade ever again. Why would he have them retreat again? Jiyu Shubai's eyes were like nails, fiercely glaring at the retreating Western Kuan army. The communications officer repeated himself again. "Young general, these are orders from the head general." Jiyu Shubai cast an unreconciled look at Western Kuan's army. At a distance of roughly 100 paces away, they would be able to chase down and kill half of their soldiers if they did give chase. It was because the border between the two countries lay in that 100-pace gap that they could not cross over the small line of rocks. They could only watch the people from Western Kuan escape. The feelings of resentment were ones that members of the Jiyu family army were quite familiar with. This was what happened every year. This was even more the case after the two countries established diplomatic relations this year. The court always talked about peace being the priority. Western Kuan's soldiers threw down their helmets and armor, then fled in all directions after a moment of hesitation. The communications officer was at the back of the group and did not say anything. He just continued to direct the army on its way back. Yang Zheng rode over to Jiyu Shubai's side. "Young general, will this be considered going against the head general's orders?" The head general's orders were to not pursue the enemy and return to the camp. However, Jiyu Shubai stopped and shot an arrow at the enemy. He even shot an arrow through a person's neck, which was a sight that even frightened him. Jiyu Shubai turned his horse around with a relaxed demeanor. Think about it, why did the head general tell us to turn back? What other reason could there possibly be? Yang Zheng acted like a learned person, reciting all of the reasons, because the border is just ahead, and our Eastern Ling is a reasonable country that does not invade its neighbors. We must not cross that border. As long as we can drive back Western Kuan's army, that's good, you can scarcely be blamed. When you were eavesdropping outside the tent that night, you were chased away by Uncle Yang halfway through the meeting, so you wouldn't understand father's intentions. He rode back, and Yang Zheng curiously followed along behind him. What did the head general say after I was chased away? Young general, tell me. Father said that we will counterattack this time and hand Western Kuan a crushing defeat. We will make them too afraid to ever attack us ever again. Think about it. Since father has already said this, why did he still tell us to not pursue? Chapter 276 Deceived by Father, Part 2, with Yang Zheng's brain, taking orders and leading soldiers into battle was manageable, but having him think about battle tactics on his own was something that could not be more difficult. Jiyu Shubai did not have any hopes that he could figure it out, so he just left him behind and rode back. Yang Zheng's voice suddenly came from behind. Head General didn't allow us to continue chasing to allow Western Kuan's people to think that things are just like before. It's to deceive the enemy. Young General shooting an arrow at the enemy is to show Western Kuan that even if we are angry, we still don't dare to cross the border. This is also to deceive the enemy. Jiyu Shubai sat up straight and stopped his horse. After a moment, he revealed a smile. It seemed that Yang Zheng eavesdropping outside the tent for so many years did show some signs of growth. Young General's shot really was a great finishing touch. Ha ha ha. The sound of laughter spread from the tent, as Yang Zheng personally opened the tent flap for Jiyu Shubai. He then stood outside like a bodyguard. He actually had no intention of leaving. Jiyu Shubai glanced at him but did not expose him. Entering the tent, he reported on the situation at the front. Good, you may rise. Jiyu Huijiang was very satisfied. Of my sons, you are the one who understands father's intentions the best. Upon hearing that fighting has broken out at Zhuguan, your second brother and third brother have already sent people to question father. He brought out the letters sent by Jiyu Juji and Jiyu Hanmo, and Jiyu Shubai received them to take a look. The one with Weizhou's wax seal was from Jiyu Juji, and the one with Chengchuan's wax seal was from Jiyu Hanmo. There was no need to open them. Jiyu Shubai also knew what was written inside. But he still opened them. Sure enough, they said that Jiyu Huijiang did not trust the two of them and said that he sent them to places where there was no fighting to try and protect them. He laughed and said, "Second brother and third brother are getting angry too early. Are they so certain that Wei Yizhu and Changchuan won't see big battles?" Jiyu Huijiang slightly raised an eyebrow and looked at him. Father and son reached an unspoken understanding. This action left the other generals present confused. Head General, Young General, what do you mean by that? Didn't you say that the main battle will be at Zhuguan? How is that related to Wei Yizhu and Changchuan? Jiyu Huijiang pointed at the map of the border hanging on the wall. During today's battle, not only did we want to mislead the enemy, but the enemy was also testing us. We knew beforehand that the enemy's main force was stationed near Zhuguan. With their defeat today, could it be that they won't change their tactics? Head General means to say that they know that they can't defeat our main force, so they will change direction and go after Wei Yizhu and Changchuan. This is bad. Second young sir and third young sir's sides are unprepared. Everyone started discussing the matter. Since Jiyu Huijiang knew about this beforehand, why did he not contact Jiyu Juji and Jiyu Hanmo? Only Jiyu Shubai had guessed Jiyu Huijiang's intentions. We can't let the two sides know. Only by leaving the two sides unprepared can Western Kuan get a taste of sweet victory. Only by allowing Western Kuan to get a taste of victory will they think that they have strategies that ensure success. Otherwise, with today's victory and the ability to strike first, It would be bad if Western Kuan didn't dare to attack us. What was bad about being too afraid to attack? Was their goal not to leave Western Kuan too afraid to attack? No. It was indeed like that in the past, but this time was different. This time, Jiyu Huaijiang did not want victory. It was more than that. In order to reach the final goal, he needed to have Western Kuan's army advance without any reservations. Like this, they would be able to completely annihilate them. Jiyu Huaijiang looked at Jiyu Shubai with a smile and a gentle look in his eyes. That is indeed the case. But father is also worried for your second brother and third brother, worried that they will have accidents during their first times leading battles on their own. When they left, Jiyu Huaijiang told them that Zhuguan would be the main camp, while their camps would be secondary. If the main camp needed it, reinforcements could be called from their camps, and if the secondary camps needed reinforcements, they could be called from the main camp. That was why they left feeling very assured and did not have any feeling of independently leading their troops. Now that this battle had concluded, it was time to see if they would still say that Jiyu Huaijiang did not trust them and just wanted to protect them. Report. General Xiaoqi, news had come from Zhuguan. Western Kuan's army is coming to Weiju. Report. General Hu Wei, an urgent report has come from the main camp. Western Kuan's army is coming to Changchuan. Jiyu Juji was complaining to his personal guards in the camp, saying that he wanted to go to the main camp to help his father and brother in the fight. Upon hearing this news, he immediately became lively. How many troops are there in total? How far away are they from the Weiju camp? They are within 3 li of the camp. General Xiaoqi, how should we combat them? How should they fight them? Jiyu Joga's eyes grew wide, looking at the soldier who delivered the news. How we should fight them. Has there been any news from the main camp at Zhuguan? Replying to General, aside from this information, there was nothing else. In Weiju and Changchuan, Jiyu Juji and Jiyu Hanmo sat in their main tents, as their minds were a mess. There were no orders or directives. Did something happen at Zhuguan that left Jiyu Huaijiang unable to give orders, or did he intend to have them independently take command for practice? They had only just written letters in the morning, blaming Jiyu Huaijiang for not letting them set foot on the battlefield, but thinking about it now, they had been too naive. Officers, lead the troops out of the city to fight. At the 2 camps, Jiyu Juji and Jiyu Hanmo made almost the exact same move. Picking up their swords, they strode out of their tents full of heroic bearing. Deceived by Father, Part 2, with Yang Zheng's brain, taking orders and leading soldiers into battle was manageable, but having him think about battle tactics on his own was something that could not be more difficult. Jiyu Shubai did not have any hopes that he could figure it out, so he just left him behind and rode back. Yang Zheng's voice suddenly came from behind. Head General didn't allow us to continue chasing to allow Western Kuan's people to think that things are just like before. It's to deceive the enemy. Young General shooting an arrow at the enemy is to show Western Kuan that even if we are angry, we still don't dare to cross the border. This is also to deceive the enemy. Jiyu Shubai sat up straight and stopped his horse. After a moment, he revealed a smile. It seemed that Yang Zheng eavesdropping outside the tent for so many years did show some signs of growth. Young General's shot really was a great finishing touch. Ha ha ha. The sound of laughter spread from the tent, as Yang Zheng personally opened the tent flap for Jiyu Shubai. He then stood outside like a bodyguard. Like this, they would be able to completely annihilate them. Jiyu Huaijiang looked at Jiyu Shubai with a smile and a gentle look in his eyes. That is indeed the case. But father is also worried for your second brother and third brother, worried that they will have accidents during their first times leading battles on their own. When they left, Jiyu Huaijiang told them that Zhuguan would be the main camp, while their camps would be secondary. If the main camp needed it, reinforcements could be called from their camps, and if the secondary camps needed reinforcements, they could be called from the main camp. That was why they left feeling very assured and did not have any feeling of independently leading their troops. Now that this battle had concluded, it was time to see if they would still say that Jiyu Huaijiang did not trust them and just wanted to protect them. Report. General Xiaoqi, news had come from Zhuguan. Western Kuan's army is coming to Weiju. Report. General Hu Wei, An urgent report has come from the main camp. Wester Kuan's army is coming to Changchuan. Gu Juji was complaining to his personal guards in the camp, saying that he wanted to go to the main camp to help his father and brother in the fight. Upon hearing this news, he immediately became lively. How many troops are there in total? How far away are they from the Weiju camp? They are within 3 li of the camp. General Xiaoqi, how should we combat them? How should they fight them? Jiu Joga's eyes grew wide, looking at the soldier who delivered the news. How we should fight them? Has there been any news from the main camp at Zhuguan? Replying to General, aside from this information, there was nothing else. In Weiju and Changchuan, Jiu Juji and Jiu Hanmo sat in their main tents, as their minds were a mess. There were no orders or directives. Did something happen at Zhuguan that left Jiu Huijiang unable to give orders, or did he intend to have them independently take command for practice? They had only just written letters in the morning, blaming Jiu Huijiang for not letting them set foot on the battlefield, but thinking about it now, they had been too naive. Officers, lead the troops out of the city to fight. At the 2 camps, Jiu Juji and Jiu Hanmo made almost the exact same move. Picking up their swords, they strode out of their tents full of heroic bearing. Chapter 277 Female General in Red, Part 3. Outside Weiju City, 2 armies faced off. Western Kuan's army was far larger than Eastern Ling's. The head general opposing Jiu Juji was a female. Her clothes and horse were red like flames. She did not look very young. Wearing red armor and riding a horse, she was situated at the front of the large army and was looking at Jiu Juji with contempt. Even a little brat who stinks of breast milk wants to copy others in learning to fight? Is the Jiu family's army lacking in talent? This voice. For some reason, Jiu Juji found it familiar. Looking carefully at the face under the helmet, the face had a 70% resemblance. One looked valiant and brave, while the other looked frail and affectionate. Having grown accustomed to that frail girl's face, Jiu Juji was filled with an indescribable feeling from seeing the female general before him. The female general saw him distracted and disdainfully laughed. What? Have you brats from Eastern Ling never seen a woman that could set foot on the battlefield? Then take a good look today at how a woman will take over your city. Jiu Juji did not have any experience in independently leading a battle, but Jiu Huijiang had already given his orders, so he was not too worried. Regaining his wits, he faintly laughed. General's tone to be so arrogant. I nearly thought that the one to suffer a defeat at Zhuguan was not your Liu family's army. While he laughed, he looked up at the military banner behind the female general. The Liu banner is very unfamiliar. May I ask what the name of the female general is? The young man was very handsome, but his words stung and made people feel disgusted. What a pity. The female general squinted her eyes, and the crinkles at the corners of her eyes seemed to show her experience on the battlefield. Unfortunately, this handsome young man was the son of the enemy. My Liu family is one of Western Kuan's military families. This general is the younger sister of head General Liu Kuang, Liu Tingting. You are young and naturally do not understand. Back when your father was still just a brat, our 2 families fought at Zhuguan. Jiu Juji carefully chose his words. When my father was young, this female general must not yet have come of age, right? If he was a brat, what would you have been? Even if she was a female general who had much experience on the battlefield, the person on the other side of the battlefield still became red in the face. Nonsense. This general is 1 year older than your father. For women who were no longer young, which one would not like being seen as younger? The guards behind Jiu Juji quietly spoke. General Xiaoqi is too amazing. Even this sort of female barbarian can be made red in the face by his word. An order suddenly came from the other side. Kill. Goodness, this female barbarian was pretending to be embarrassed. She wanted to kill them while they were caught off guard. The 2 sides collided. Jiu Juji had been startled by the female general's face, and he was lacking in experience, thus he did not have a good showing during this battle. He gave the order to retreat to Weiju City, and Western Kuan's army assaulted the city and only retreated when reinforcements arrived from the main camp. Jiyu Joga's condition was terrible, his armor completely soaked in blood. Why did the reinforcements arrive so late from the main camp? The main camp warned me so early, so why did the troops only just arrive? Jiyu Juji was ferocious, ordering for the general of the reinforcements to come and answer questions. Who knew that the one to enter the tent would be Jiyu Shubai? Young general. Only now did Jiyu Juji give up. The two brothers talked for a while when Jiyu Juji suddenly remembered something. Right, eldest brother. There's something important that I must tell you and father. Do you know the background of the female general named Liu Tingting? Jiyu Shubai had just been at the top of Ju Mountain a few days earlier and heard Jiyu Huijiang tell him about the Liu family's resentment. He immediately nodded. She is the younger sister of Western Kuan's head general, Liu Kuang. She is also the younger sister of Western Kuan's famous female general, Liu Yinyan. Liu Yinyan. This name sounded very unfamiliar. Jiyu Juji searched through his mind but did not come up with any clues. Who is Liu Yinyan? 17 years ago, Liu Yinyan's army launched an assault on Juguan but was captured alive by father. In the end, she committed suicide while in captivity. Liu Kuang blamed this on father. His hatred of father and the Jiyu family's army consumes him. 17 years, Jiyu Juji muttered, eldest brother, I know the identity of Yin Jiao's mother. Chapter 278 He should try to curry favor, Part 4. After the wedding between Kuan Yuyang and Uncle Ning, sure enough, they enjoyed a harmonious and loving marriage. On the other hand, the situation between Princess Danyang and Yin Shuo became Emperor Ning's second biggest headache after the cabinet. On the third day after getting married, when the wife returned to the palace to visit family, Princess Danyang complained about how small and run down the Prime Minister's manor was in front of every member of the inner palace. She wanted Emperor Ning to have a princess's manor built for her and allow her to live in the princess's manor like the princesses of the past. Emperor Ning angrily scolded her. The princesses of the past had their own manners because they lived during times of peace. Look after Eastern Ling's current war situation. There's not even enough money for the war effort, so how could there be any money left to be spent on constructing a princess's manor? There was not enough money, yet money was being sent to Marquis Gu's manor every day. In the past, Jiyu Huijiang was the only one being rewarded. He was a great general with many military accomplishments, so it was normal for him to have earned Emperor Ning's favor. Now, there was also Yu Fu, who was also receiving an endless stream of rewards. As for her, the princess born of the empress, she had been pushed off to the side. She could not even have a manor of her own. Returning from the palace, Princess Danyang was filled with pent-up anger, thus every aspect of the Prime Minister's manor looked even more displeasing. Where is my husband? Replying to Princess, he is taking care of work in the outer study. Do you need this servant to pass along a message? As a palace maid who was part of the dowry, she followed Princess Danyang and married into the Prime Minister's manor, moving into one of the manor's best courtyards, the Eastern Courtyard. But no matter how good the Eastern Courtyard was, it could not compare with the manor's main courtyard. That was where the proper masters of the manor would reside. Princess Danyang lazily waved her hand and sat in front of the dresser. There's no need. I get annoyed just from looking at him. Diana hesitated for a moment before picking up the comb and brushing her hair. If you have something to say, just say it. With the Prime Minister's manor as it is, this one doesn't even have someone to speak to. If even you won't speak, would this one not die of boredom? Yes, Princess. Diana considered her words. On the day of the wedding, Princess used the excuse of not feeling well to not allow Master to come and visit, and Master went along with Princess's wishes. But on the second day, the bridal sheet was sent into the palace. Imperial consort Xian and the others know that Princess did not consummate the marriage, so who knows how they're mocking Princess. Not to mention others mocking her, Even Dienna and the nannies that had accompanied her out of the palace felt that this was improper. No matter how noble a lady was, once they were married, they needed to consummate the marriage. Otherwise, what sort of situation would that be? No matter how much she disliked Yin Shuo, she was already married to him. Could it be that she still wanted to preserve herself for someone else? Princess Danyang observed herself in the mirror and felt that her expression was getting uglier and uglier the more she listened. She was just barely able to force a smile at herself in the mirror. They can mock me as they please. This one does not plan to refuse to consummate the marriage with Yin Shuo forever. It's just that this one does not like him. He needs to curry favor with me first for me to agree. Dienna was quietly anxious, but Master looks to be without desire. These days, with Princess not looking for him, he does not even set foot in the eastern courtyard. Does it look like he intends to curry favor with Princess? What if Yin Shuo never came to curry favor with Princess Danyang? Would she not end up alone for the rest of her life? Dienna felt afraid just thinking about it. Looking at the mirror, the smile that Princess Danyang was forcing also drooped. If Yin Shuo came to curry favor with her, she would fiercely humiliate him, but if Yin Shuo did not come to curry favor with her, her heart felt a little empty. He should come to win her over. Yin Jiaro faintly smiled. Many thanks, Princess, for the concern, but I am fine. It has been extremely hot recently, and the conditions have not been suitable for it to scab over, so it ended up like this. As a result, I have not been able to come and pay respects to Princess and hope that Princess will forgive me. Princess Danyang waved her hand. Forget it, forget it. With you as you are, how do you plan to pay your respects? It would be best to go back and rest. Dienna, send some of the bird nest that I brought with me out of the palace to young Miss Yin to help her recover. Yes, Princess. Yin Jiaro saluted once more. Many thanks, Princess. After she left, Princess Danyang finally remembered that she had called Yin Jiaro here to try and look for trouble. How did she end up giving her something? Forget it. For a girl's face to have such a serious wound, it was probable that it would never heal properly. Yin Jiaro was so pitiful that she could not bring herself to trouble her any further. After much thought, Princess Danyang finally relented. Go to the outer study and see what my husband is doing. Chapter 279 Everything will be better when the second young sir returns, Part 5. Yin Jiaro would rather ruin her face than help him inquire about the cabinet. This was something that Yin Shuo did not expect. He was cold by nature. He never had any good feelings about this younger sister born from a different mother. A fierce thought came to mind, and he decided to no longer allow the doctor to visit Yin Jiaro's courtyard. Her courtyard had returned to only being given lettuce and radishes. There was no meat or fish, much less ice to cool down during the summer heat. Peya was extremely worried. Young miss has picked at the scab on your forehead many times. It was already difficult for it to recover, but now, the eldest young sir won't even give you any ice. With the days being so hot, I fear that it won't ever get better. It would be best if it never got better. Yin Jiaro looked as if she did not care about her own well-being. If I don't get better, he won't be able to send out his sister with a ruined face to try and gain information, right? Without my beauty, what can I use to be a honey trap? Young miss. Peya did not understand. Yin Jiaro had lived like this before. This was not the first time that she had worked to gain information for her brother and father. Why was her reaction so negative this time? Was it because Chen Chuxiu had assaulted her? No, she had already been reluctant before going to see Chen Chuxiu. Peya shrilly said, Young miss, is it because of second young Sir Jiyu that you... Shush. Yin Jiaro covered her mouth then glanced at the door. Two tall grannies were lingering around outside. They had been sent by Yin Shuo to keep an eye on her. Keep your voice down. Don't let the grannies outside hear you. After being at my side for such a long time, you should know what sort of person my brother is. In the past, he only wanted to kill the eldest young sir of Marquis Gu's manor. If he heard what you said, I fear that it would be bad for the second young sir. During the past few days of being shut in, she thought back on the things that had happened in the past. She already knew the reason that Yin Shuo wanted to kill Jiyu Shubai. It was because of Yu Fu. He liked Yu Fu. Ever since returning from seeing Yu Fu at Marquis Gu's manor for the first time, Yin Shuo's reaction had been extremely unusual. He could scarcely be blamed. With Yu Fu's beauty and intelligence, which man would not like her? The person whom she liked, did he not also like Yu Fu? Peia suppressed her voice. Young miss is foolish. It's precisely because you like second young Sir Jiyu that you should obediently listen to eldest young Sir. Second young Sir Jiyu is currently at the border. How can he have the time to worry about young miss? If young miss allows your face to get ruined, how will you see second young Sir when he returns? Chapter 280 Fight to the Death, Part 1. Beyond Zhu Mountain, rows of black military tents stretched endlessly. Liu Tingting led her army back. Seeing a group of soldiers with white cloths wrapped around their heads and a casket placed to the side, her expression immediately changed. "Who is it?" she asked who was laying in the casket. Replying to Deputy General Liu, "It's General Chen. He had his throat pierced by an arrow shot by Eastern Ling's young general and died." "Young general? Is it the one that led the reinforcements to Weiju?" When she retreated, she took a look but did not see too clearly. She just felt that there was a handsome young man whose bearing was different from the others. Compared to the handsome general defending Weiju, his looks were even more impressive, and his bearing was completely different from others. An arrow through the throat. The next generation of the Jiyu family's army far exceeded her expectations. Liu Tingting glanced at the casket. "I know that you were his subordinates, but the battle still has not concluded. Isn't it still too soon to start grieving? For the sake of keeping the army's morale steady, quickly remove them." After saying this, she led her subordinates toward the central tent. Something like morale was something unnecessary to Western Kuan's army. Over the many years, there had been many changes in the name on the banner. Whether it was the Liu family's army, the Wang family's army, or the Xie family's army, they attacked Eastern Ling year after year, but when had they ever taken a single city from Eastern Ling? Emperor Kuan's eyes were focused on Eastern Ling's beautiful rivers and mountains. No matter how many people died while fighting on the border, he wanted Eastern Ling's territory. For this reason, all able-bodied people in Western Kuan, regardless of age or physical condition, learned how to fight. If they did not know that Eastern Ling only knew how to defend and did not dare attack, who would possibly be so careless with their lives and want to fight? Speaking of this, their morale was provided by Eastern Ling. It had been provided by the Jiyu family's army. The leading officer heaved a sigh and removed the white cloth from his head. "Brothers, let's move the general's body. When this battle ends, we can send him back to his family home." One of the soldiers below followed his lead and removed his headband. "Leader, I really hope that the Jiyu family's army quickly wins, so we can quickly go home." "What nonsense are you spouting?" The one who had been referred to as leader let out a shout and looked around. "You can keep those words in your head, but saying them out loud is a capital crime. Other generals might be more lenient, but Head General Liu will not spare you. Could it be that you don't know about the blood feud between those siblings and the Jiyu family's army?" "Eldest brother, I've come back." Inside the tent, Liu Kuang turned around and sharply looked at Liu Tingting. "I heard that the Jiyu family's young general led a group to reinforce Weiju, so I immediately sent someone to inform you. It's fortunate that nothing happened to you." Liu Tingting felt uneasy from his gaze. "I'm fine. Jiyu Shubai led a group to reinforce, so I retreated the army and came back here. I also did not have any expectations of taking Weiju in a single attack. On the contrary, I found something out. Weizhou's defenses were weaker than we had expected. I don't know if our preparations caught the Jiyu family's army unprepared, or if Jiyu Huijiang placed too much trust in his son, sending a son with no battle experience to head Weizhou's defenses. At the time, Liu Yinyin was Western Kuan's most famous female general. After she died, Western Kuan's position as head general was given to the Wang family. After a decade, Western Kuan's top military brass was changed, and the golden seal of the head general was returned to the Liu family. After a decade of sharpening his blade, Liu Kuang had been waiting to avenge this shame for over a decade. Eldest brother, Liu Yinyan, and I look the same, but I am not Liu Yinyan. I will not die a brutal death as she did. Liu Kuang sneered. You are not her. Of course, you are not her. You two were twins, and you two were the same age. However, she was better at leading troops than we are. This is why elder brother wants you to not underestimate the younger generation of the Jiyu family's army. Those who are arrogant will surely suffer defeat. You do not possess Yinyan's talent, thus you must be more humble than Yinyan. Liu Tingting's complexion was a little ugly, but she forced out a reply. Yes, eldest brother's word is final on this expedition. But has eldest brother considered changing the main battlefield to Wise Hu? Changchuan could also work. Zhu Guan is being defended by Jiyu Huaijiang himself, so it's truly quite difficult to fight here. If not for Jiyu Shubai rushing over today, I could have taken Weiju. Take Weiju and do what? Liu Kuang's expression sank. Did you think that by taking Weiju and flanking them, we could find a breakthrough point at Zhu Guan? Have you not considered that Jiyu Huaijiang knew that Zhu Guan would be the site of the main battlefield, and that's why he stationed the majority of his troops at Zhu Guan? Once we move our main forces to Weiju, they will also move their troops. Either way, we can't avoid Jiyu Huaijiang's eyes. Since that's the case, we might as well not move. We will fight to the death at Zhu Guan. Chapter 281 Pitying Yin Yang, Part 2. You are certain about what Zhu Ji said about Yin Jiao and Liu Tingting looking similar, but how similar? Jiyu Shubai reported what Jiyu Zhu Ji had discovered, and Jiyu Huaijiang took it very seriously. This made him notice something a little strange. Second brother said that it was a 70% resemblance. For people who are not related, it's impossible for them to look so similar. He felt that Yin Jiao's unmentionable mother was Liu Yinyan. Do you think that this is possible? Before meeting with Jiyu Huaijiang, Jiyu Shubai felt that this was impossible. She was a female general who committed suicide on the battlefield, so how could she possibly become Prime Minister Yin's concubine and give birth to Yin Jiao? After meeting with Jiyu Huaijiang, he clearly saw a look of acceptance of Jiyu Joga's theory in his father's eyes. Jiyu Huaijiang fell silent for a moment. There is something that father forgot to tell you. Liu Yinyan and Liu Tingting of Western Kuan's Liu family, like Jiyu Xiong and Jiyu Yi, are twins. Twins? That's to say Liu Yinyan and Liu Tingting look exactly the same? Liu Yinyan and Liu Tingting looked exactly the same, and Yin Jiao greatly resembled Liu Tingting. That meant that it was very likely that she was the daughter of Liu Yinyan. Jiyu Huaijiang said, if not for Jiyu Zhuji mentioning it, father would have nearly forgotten about it. Back then, Liu Kuang executed 300 prisoners of war, including people from the Jiyu family's army. At that time, we were elated and thought that we could bring those prisoners of war back, but then those prisoners were suddenly executed. The soldiers were furious, and the situation got messy. Liu Yinyan's corpse disappeared. At that time, father thought that the soldiers were resentful, so they secretly abandoned her corpse in the wilderness. Or it was a group from Western Kuan that secretly retrieved her corpse without us knowing. Thinking back on it, Liu Yinyan was pretending to be dead, or the poison was treated after. Both of these are possible. Jiyu Shubai sarcastically laughed, so that's why. It's no wonder Prime Minister Yin hid the secret of his concubine from the brothel so fiercely. It turned out that she wasn't from a brothel. Instead, she was a famous female general from Western Kuan. How did Liu Yinyan, as a female general from Western Kuan, end up leaving with Yin Yang then pass away early? It was likely that these mysteries would never be solved. Jiyu Huaijiang looked up. He understood his son. There were not many things in this world that could make Jiyu Shubai have this sort of reaction. He was truly angry. Shubai, why are you so angry? Jiyu Shubai looked into his calm eyes. It was as if he had a bucket of cold water poured on his head, and he quickly calmed down. Father, it was I who got too agitated. Son just feels that you have been wronged. You have allowed Yin Yang to do as he pleased for so many years, and you have endured being suspected and envied by him. You have endured being incited and insulted. In the end, we find out that he is the reason for the unclear relationship between Western Kuan and us. Father, are you not angry? Jiyu Huaijiang shook his head with a smile. Not only was he not angry, but he was actually quite relaxed. The moonlight poured into the room like water, coming in through the tent skylight. It landed on the map of the border region, giving it an elegance similar to an ink painting. It was as if this was neither a military tent on the border nor on the battlefield. Instead, it felt like a family home in Jiangnan. Back when he had executed 300 prisoners of war, he held up a bloody sword and decapitated head and proclaimed that he would get revenge against Jiyu Huaijiang for his little sister. After a decade-long gap, he had finally come. Jiyu Huaijiang tilted his head back and looked out through the skylight. A crescent moon hung in the sky. Is today the 2nd? Jiyu Shubai followed his gaze and looked out. That's right. It will be the Mid-Autumn Festival in a few days. Unfortunately, we won't be able to celebrate the festival as a family at the manor. I wonder if they will make mooncakes in new shapes this year. We won't be able to enjoy any mooncakes, but Father will do my best to allow you guys to get back in time to eat Osmanthus cakes. Osmanthuses were most fragrant during the 9th and 10th months. This meant. Jiyu Shubai rejoiced, his pursed lips curling into a smile. Everything is ready. We're just waiting for Liu Kuang to make his move. Chapter 282 Eating Mooncakes, Part 3. After one battle, Liu Kuang made countless changes to his tactics. The scouts sent out by Jiyu Huaijiang returned in waves with news of Liu Kuang sending troops to Weiju and Liu Kuang sending troops to Changchuan. At the start, everyone thought that Liu Kuang was trying to attack the two fronts where the defenses were weaker, but as more and more troops were moved around, a quick calculation showed that there were not many troops left at the main camp outside Zhuguan. Head General moved all of his troops from Zhuguan to Weiju and Changchuan. If things continue on like this, there will be a battle. Head General, please give the order to move our troops to both sides. The fighting still hasn't started. What's the rush to reinforce them? Jiyu Huaijiang remained completely calm. Seeing two dark figures lingering outside the tent, he cleared his throat. Yang Zheng, Huiyin, come in. The two people who had been named subconsciously wanted to flee, but after some thought, Head General was allowing them to go in. Strange, it was already lucky enough that they were not being chased away, but why were they being called in? The two of them were self-aware. They knew that based on their age and experience, they still did not have the qualifications to enter the main tent. Head General, do you have some orders? Jiyu Huaijiang did not bring up whether or not troops would be moved. On the contrary, he smiled and looked at the two. I heard that the young general say that the two of you have been frequently going into the city to buy supplies in preparation for a long battle. Is this the case? Yes. It turned out that he was asking about this, and Yang Zheng relaxed. We followed the young general's methods and accounted for the amount of food produced and taxes paid by Zhuguan over the past 3 years. I have already reached an agreement with Zhuguan's prefect to not immediately send the grains harvested in the border cities to the capital. If our military rations are running low, we can take some from the regions surrounding Zhuguan. Would that not be better than a long supply line from the capital? Jiyu Huaijiang nodded. Then I will give you two another mission. Go to the city and buy some mooncakes. We must ensure that every soldier is able to eat one. We will need to pass this year's Mid-Autumn Festival here, so we can't allow the soldiers to suffer. These two did not know much else, but they were familiar with the city. This was a task that they could handle very smoothly. Yang Zheng cheerfully said, understood. Leave this matter to us. What sort of time was this? Yet Jiyu Huaijiang was still in the mood to eat mooncakes. The two from the younger generation cheerfully rushed out, while the generals in the tent were confused. Head General, moving the troops is the most pressing matter right now. Who knows when Liu Kuang will attack Weiju and Changchuan? Last time, they only sent 2 small groups to attack the 2 cities, and the groups led by the second young sir and third young sir were completely unable to defend. How should they defend against the much larger force that they sent this time? Liu Kuang will not send anyone to the 2 other cities. There's no need to worry. Jiyu Huijiang stood up and pointed at the map of the border region. Just like before, it was most likely that Zhuguan would remain the main battlefield. Lao Jin was the one who was most impatient. If Jiyu Huijiang did not explain it clearly, he would not continue to listen to the discussion of tactics. Head General, how can you be so certain that Liu Kuang won't send reinforcements to the 2 cities? Every single one of our scouts has returned with information on Liu Kuang's troop movements. Did you not hear them? The third reason that he mentioned was definitely the most important reason, that there would be no change. Of course, the topography would not change, but the Jiyu family's army's tactics would change. Yang Hua said, saying it like this, not only does Liu Kuang hope that the main battlefield will be outside Zhuguan, but Head General also wishes it to be like this. Jiyu Shubai smiled and nodded to him. I think that if Liu Kuang really wanted to change the location, Father would think of a way to have him regroup his forces at Zhuguan. Father, am I right? In the fight between Western Kuan and Eastern Ling always had the upper hand. Jiyu Huijiang wanted to dispatch Western Kuan's army with ease. Having been asked, Jiyu Huijiang raised his hand once more and pointed at the map on the wall. It's almost time for the Mid-Autumn Festival. We shall eat mooncakes while waiting for Liu Kuang to attack. Pointing at the map, he tapped it a couple of times, and everyone looked over. It was where a tall peak stood, and it was none other than Zhuguan. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.